Part 47. So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 470. In the ancestral land of the Blue Clan, the vast spiritual energy filled the sky and the earth. Yao Meng was wearing a fluttering green skirt. She exuded an air of clarity and clarity that was not stained by dust. She stood in the air, looking forward. Many cultivators gathered outside the ancestral land, but no one dared to speak. The elders of the Blue Clan looked even more nervous. Although they could not see the appearance of this fairy, they could feel the dangerous aura emanating from her at the moment, which was mysterious and intimidating. Although she looked like a fairy at the moment, with a graceful figure, she looked like a kind fairy sister. But the Blue Clan was an ancient family after all, and they were well informed. They had heard that after the Blue Emperor ascended to heaven that day, because his lover was injured, he killed 2 Enlightenment realm and a Hedeo great power in the western region. After that, she even went into the southern wilderness alone, patiently captured the god of the ocean and killed him together. All this information alone can prove that the fairy's current strength is unfathomable and extremely terrifying. However, the Sabbath envoy opposite her, although people don't know her at all, the heavenly Deo will protect her to a certain extent during the Sabbath. If the two really fight, the consequences will be disastrous. Seeing the danger spreading outside the ancestral land of the Blue Clan, a group of cultivators dared not even breathe, and Lan Wu subconsciously clenched his fists hidden under his sleeves. Why hasn't Musian come out yet? He muttered to himself, cold sweat oozing from his forehead, obviously under great pressure. He even found it hard to imagine how this future brother-in-law dared to flirt with the Green Emperor and have an affair with other women at the same time. And one of them was actually the envoy of the Sabbath. Isn't he afraid that he will be thrown into the small dark room by the Green Emperor for training after this? Lan Wu complained viciously in his heart, while praying that Musian would come out quickly. At present, the Lan clan has sent people into the ancestral land, but I am afraid that before Musian comes out, Xianhuang Mountain will be razed to the ground. When the dangerous atmosphere here gradually permeates, people do not notice that at this moment, in the void, the silver-haired beauty in a white dress is looking outside the ancestral land. She blinked her transparent and charming red eyes, glanced at Yao Meng, and then glanced at the direction of Xianhuang Mountain. She seemed to understand something, and opened her red lips slightly. The next moment, Lin Ling turned into a ray of light and entered the secret realm of Xianhuang Mountain. It's outrageous. She actually wants me to take down the big shark of the sect master sister. Musian looked at Lan Shiwei's autumn water eyes. After an unknown period of time, he suddenly woke up and finally couldn't help muttering in his heart. In fact, for Musian, it is naturally impossible to say that he has no thoughts about the sect master's sister. In his opinion, the sect master has all the advantages of women: intellectual, mysterious, sexy, elegant. You can see everything you want to see in her. Well, except that her breasts are not as big as Naxi's. However, Musian always felt a little afraid of her. This fear was a bit similar to the feeling of meeting his own class teacher during school. Because in front of her, he always felt that she knew everything he said to make people happy, and even what he was thinking in his mind, even though she didn't have the ability to read minds. The two people Musian feared the most in this world were the Queen of the Demon Realm and the Sect Master. The former could read minds, and the latter could always arrange things clearly for others. With concubine Shangyan's appearance, I think no boy should be able to refuse. Why do you look so hesitant? Lan Shiwei also saw Musian's hesitation and couldn't help but speak. Musian forced a smile and said, "Why did the senior let me give her the chaotic energy? After all, what is this chaotic energy for?" He had indeed been coveting the sect master for a long time, and even thought about letting her and her disciple Lan Murian be in bed together. However, when he really asked him to go, Musian was really a little hesitant. Because in his impression, the sect master's sister is the type that can look at you without changing her expression even if you press her on the bed. Even Yao Meng occasionally showed a shy expression when being suppressed by Musian. After all, King Di's sister is the type of high attack and low defense. But the sect master. It seems too difficult to make such a woman shy. Lan Shiwei was dressed in a gorgeous blue dress. She slowly walked around in front of Musian, and a rose-like fragrance lingered between the wings of her nose, making people feel intoxicated by her charm. In the early days of chaos, there was a ball of fire, called the Fire of Chaos. After a long period of evolution, the ball of fire mysteriously disappeared, leaving behind a wisp of spiritual energy. When chaos first began, people called it the Qi of Chaos. Its effect is even better than that of the imperial medicine. First, it can prolong life, and second, it can suppress bad luck. Whether it is man-made or God-willed bad luck, it will be suppressed by the Qi of Chaos. Musian was stunned for a moment. You mean, the sect master is also troubled by bad luck? That woman who didn't know how far she could deduce the secrets of heaven would also be troubled by bad luck? And if I remember correctly, Linger seemed to have transferred the bad luck of the sect master's sister to her own body before. Could it be that the bad luck of the sect master's sister was not innate, but acquired, and even if the bad luck was cleared, new bad luck would still be imposed on her? Musian calmed down his thoughts slightly, and soon sighed with regret, saying, although I also want to help her, but I'm afraid I won't be able to transfer this chaotic energy into her body in a short time. The natural furnace cauldron can only accommodate this ray of chaotic energy, but it is not yet able to refine it, let alone transfer it to concubine Shang Yan. I just keep it in your body first. When your natural furnace can refine the energy of chaos, you can go directly to her. Lan Shiwei was not surprised and answered very calmly. In that case, why did Senior give it to me in advance now? Musian hesitated. He felt that it was not a good thing to keep the chaos energy in his natural furnace, because his natural furnace could not be used in a short time. It is refined and cannot be given to others. I want to see her expression. Lan Shiwei's always calm expression finally had a hint of smile. When she knows that the energy of chaos is in your natural furnace, will she still be as calm as before? Will she be able to communicate with you calmly, and will she come to me in anger to settle the score? Musian. He looked at this beautiful ancestor of the Blue Tribe in astonishment. What's wrong? Lan Shiwei asked. It's okay, I always thought you were a serious person, Musian complained rather speechlessly. From this point of view, this ancestor of the Blue Clan does have some similarities with his senior sister. They both look cold and serious, but in fact they are both a bit sinister. I just don't know what the relationship between her and the sect master is. Boom. At this moment, the entire ancient ship suddenly trembled violently, and then, a tsunami-like spiritual energy enveloped from outside the ancestral land, making Musian's legs almost weak. He immediately activated the spiritual energy from the cauldron in his body. At the same time, Lan Shiwei gently raised his hand, and an invisible formation formed to isolate the spiritual energy from the outside world. What's going on? Why is there so much noise outside? Musian said in surprise. Lan Shiwei's eyes were bright and he said softly, there are great powers fighting outside. One of them is Emperor Cheng. Yao Meng? Who can fight with her? A big question arose in Musian's mind. You know, Yao Meng is now in the Ascension realm, the only human emperor in Kyushu. Who can fight with her without falling behind? Could it be that Ruoxi's catastrophe of becoming immortal is over? Or did Zixuan come out of seclusion from the demon world? But no matter who she is my wife. How can my family fight among themselves? Mu Jian was already a little anxious, thinking about how to stop them after they went out. Lan Shiwei glanced at him. Those who fight against King Di do not belong to Kyushu. Oh, that's okay. Musian suddenly felt relieved. As long as it's not Ruoxi and the others, it doesn't matter. If Yao Meng were fighting with other fishes, Musian might become the sealed Musian if he was not careful. After that, the scene was beautiful. Maybe one day when Musian wakes up, he will find that he is tied up by several ancestral locks made of different fairy golds, and then the girls are discussing about breaking up. But if it's not a fish in a fish pond, it doesn't matter. If he doesn't belong to Kyushu, he is the god of the foreign starry sky, the human emperor of the Ascension realm. If he wants to suppress a god, it is very simple, but at least the other party will be wary and dare not fight with Yao Meng for too long. After all, the human emperor is outside the rules of heaven and earth, is not restricted by heaven, and has amazing combat power. Once she is completely annoyed, no one can get rid of her. Senior, is there anything else? Mu Jian felt relieved for the time being. He noticed that Lan Shiwei was staring at him and couldn't help but ask. However, Lan Shiwei did not answer, but stretched out his hand to slowly touch Musian's face. Stupid fox, how long are you going to pretend to be dead? Then, she spoke slowly in a cold, flat voice. When the words fell, a silver bell-like laughter echoed around in the ancient ship. Divine light surged out of Musian's body, and the strange pink light spots gradually condensed into an enchanting body, ice muscle jade. Bones, flawless. The delicate body under the tulle dress has graceful and sexy lines, full breasts, a slender waist, tight and perky hips, slender and plump legs, all of which outline a thrilling and perfect figure, and sultry beautiful eyes. It is captivating and enough to charm all living beings. She has a pair of fox ears on her head and 9 fox tails slowly unfolding on her back. Her charming eyes are as silky as silk. Any man who sees her will probably have his heart beat faster and his eyes go straight. 9-tailed fox. When did she wake up? Musian looked at the 9-tailed celestial fox that appeared in front of him in astonishment. At first, he lost consciousness for a while, and then, countless questions quickly appeared in his heart. When the spirit dragon brought back the spiritual consciousness of the 9-tailed sky fox, the 9-tailed empress was still in a deep sleep because her aura was too weak at the time and she could not be awakened. However, it seems that her condition has recovered a little at this moment. Lan Shiwei, if I hadn't protected your blue clan back then, I'm afraid your blue clan wouldn't have been able to stay at the forefront of the ancient families in Dongzhou. Is this how you talk to your benefactor? The 9-tailed sky fox came with a charming smile and even reached out to touch Lan Shiwei's face. Musian was startled by her action. This 9-tailed empress seemed a bit frivolous. She was wearing a long gauze skirt and looked charming. Lan Shiwei looked calm, her delicate feet stepped on exquisite shoes, and she stood still. However, in front of her, there was an extremely cold light falling from the sky. She raised her palm and killed the 9-tailed fox directly. Behind her, a faint blue light flickered, like a new moon coming to the world. Boom! The whole ancient ship was shaking violently, and a mysterious breath surged out of the ancient ship. The 9-tailed fox and Lan Shiwei clapped their palms, and through the rain curtain, the whole ancestral land was shaken. The 9-tailed fox was always calm, with seductive eyes, lazy laughter, and beautiful hair fluttering in the wind, spreading with fragrance. This gauze dress seemed unable to completely cover her body. It was bumpy, like a ripe peach, with a fatal temptation that was hard to refuse. She closed her palm gracefully, playing with a strand of hair, and smiled charmingly. I protected your Lan clan in the past, but you not only didn't know how to be grateful, but now you attack me. Is this how you repay your benefactor? Lan Shiwei held up an oil paper umbrella, raised her proud white chin, and looked at her through the rain curtain. If it weren't for the seat's consent for you to stay in the ancestral land, you probably wouldn't even be able to keep this wisp of spiritual consciousness now, let alone wait for the Tiansheng furnace to save you. She changed her previous indifferent attitude and became extremely strong. She spoke again. I don't know what agreement Musian had with you, but if the dignified nine-tailed lady keeps staying in the body of a younger generation, I'm afraid she will be regarded as a joke in the future when she is passed to the demon world. The ancestor of the Lan family is also very similar to the senior sister in this respect. She usually looks non-competitive, but in fact, she is a bit overbearing in her heart. In modern times, she is the type of overbearing female president. As soon as Musian thought of this, he noticed that Lan Shiwei glanced at him inadvertently. She just mocked the nine-tailed lady. Was she reminding me that this charming and passionate fox had already woken up, and told me to be careful of her? Musian secretly speculated in his heart. He and his senior sister Fei Ying have a close relationship, and he is also half a member of the Lan family. The ancestors of the Lan family will certainly take extra care of him. If it weren't for Lan Shiwei, he probably didn't know that the nine-tailed heavenly fox had already woken up, but he just hadn't talked to him. Stay in his body? This seat can indeed warm up my own spiritual consciousness in his body, but at the same time, this seat can also warm up his nine-tailed demon body with demon chi, which is a mutually beneficial thing. The nine-tailed heavenly fox sneered, but his eyes were still intoxicating. She walked behind Musian, gently placed her hands on his shoulders, and then pressed her soft body against him. She smiled and asked, "Little guy, what do you think?" When her lips opened slightly, the seductive fragrance spread, making Musian feel a little dry in the mouth. He quickly lowered his eyes and said, "My queen, do you still remember the agreement I made with you before? Of course, I gave you the demon seed of the nine-tailed heavenly fox, and you helped me to be reborn. How could I forget such an agreement? But in fact, I am not particularly anxious about rebirth now. It doesn't matter if I stay in your natural furnace for thousands of years. You don't have to rush to arrange for my rebirth," the nine-tailed heavenly fox said lazily. "It's just that you are eyeing his natural furnace. Why do you have to be so considerate?" Lan Shiwei sneered, seeing through the fox's thoughts at a glance. He didn't say anything. "Why are you so anxious?" The nine-tailed fox laughed at the words, glanced at Musian, and said with charming eyes, "I think this child doesn't seem to object to me living in the natural furnace to nurture my spiritual consciousness. After all, he has been staring at me with lustful eyes since the beginning. Mew has never dared to forget the agreement with the queen. After this, I will find a way to collect all the materials as soon as possible and wish you to rebuild your body. As for you saying that you have been staring at you, I think it should be because of the natural charm, so I can't help looking at the queen." Under the gaze of the nine-tailed fox queen's tender eyes, Musian looked reserved and seemed to lower his eyes shyly. Tisk, this fox-eared girl really likes to tease people. After helping her rebuild her demon body in the future, I must make her ears stand up. Musian remembered this grudge in his heart. You see, he and I are in love, so what if we live in Tianchengluting for a few days? The nine-tailed fox gently lifted up the hair blown by the wind, with eyes like water, charming and affectionate, staring at Musian. Lan Shiwei looked at Musian deeply, and then inadvertently retracted his gaze. "You can leave now, my friend." Musian nodded slightly, raised his hands and bowed. "Thank you, ancestor. If you need me in the future, please let me know." Whether Lan Shiwei helped him because of the sisters or not, she really helped a lot by reminding him that the nine-tailed fox had awakened. Otherwise, if Musian accidentally said something bad about the nine-tailed fox one day, he would not know if he would be retaliated in the future. When did the queen wake up? After flying away from the mysterious ancient ship, Musian finally breathed a sigh of relief and looked at the woman who was following him like a shadow, and asked. Hearing Musian's question, the nine-tailed fox glanced at Musian with a sweet smile on her face and a hot body. As she approached him, her snow-white legs under her black gauze dress were vaguely revealed, full of indescribable temptation. The sexy-dressed nine-tailed fox approached Musian with a sweet smile, and then stretched out her snow-white slender hand to gently stroke his face. Her sexy red lips slightly opened, and said, If I have to talk about this, it's all your fault. Blame me? I don't think I've ever disturbed the queen. Musian hesitated. Could it be that when he was intimate with others, the spiritual energy of the natural furnace decreased, so it disturbed the nine-tailed fox sleeping in the natural furnace? Are you stupid? The nine-tailed fox rolled his eyes at Musian, and even a look was seductive. I just agreed with you to give you the demon seed, but I didn't say that you can share the demon seed with others. Before, when Gong Lianyu was in seclusion, she let that little girl connect to the demon seed, and I was naturally awakened. It can be said that she is a woman who is born with charm. Even when she scolds people, she sounds like a little girl's coquettishness, revealing an indescribable charm and sexiness. I'm afraid it's enough to make some boys with special hobbies willingly hug her long legs and shout, "Sister, please scold me more," and other words. But in the previous agreement between me and the queen, it seems that I didn't say that I couldn't share the demon seed with others. Musian couldn't help but say. The nine-tailed heavenly fox was speechless for a moment. Musian was right. Their previous agreement was that she would give the throne of the demon to Musian, and Musian would help her to be reborn. But in the end, she had never thought that there would be a second person who could inherit the throne of the demon. And this person was actually the palace master of the Sword Palace. When Gong Lianyu cut off her own heavenly Dao, she left a backup plan, which was to insert Bai Ruoxi into a member of the Fox clan, so that she could cultivate both of her physiques to the state of harmony and achieve the supreme Dao fruit. In the future, Bai Ruoxi as the sword sheath is the body of the nine-tailed demon, and Gong Lianyu as the sword body is the body of the sword immortal. Both physiques are in the state of harmony, and their strength will be unprecedentedly strong. Seeing this, Musian took advantage of the situation and said, "My physique is special, and it would be a waste to give the demon throne to me completely, but if it is given to the palace master, she can bring out the full effect of the demon throne." The nine-tailed heavenly fox glared at him. "The question is, what does Gong Lianyu have to do with me? Her becoming stronger would be more disadvantageous than beneficial to me." Musian looked embarrassed, "But I have already shared my demon throne with her, and it is too late to take it back now." Seeing the displeasure of the nine-tailed heavenly fox, Musian said reservedly, "It is too late to take it back now. If the queen really thinks it is inappropriate to share the demon throne with others, I am willing to make up for it in any way." "Any way?" The nine-tailed heavenly fox narrowed her beautiful eyes, looked at the handsome boy for a few times, and pursed her plump and attractive red lips. After staring for an unknown period of time, a pleasant and sweet laugh sounded in the ancestral land. Then, a sweet and leisurely voice gently lingered in the boy's ears. "That's what you said. The last few days for the monthly ticket blade to reset, please vote." So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 471. I'm afraid someone has strengthened your Tian furnace many times in the past, which is why it exudes such a sweet aura. However, remember not to expose the constitution of the Tian furnace, otherwise it will cause you great trouble. After receiving Musian's promise, the nine-tailed sky fox nodded with great satisfaction, but did not forget to remind Musian to know how to love himself. What kind of power can resonate with the Tao? What kind of things have you not experienced in this life? What kind of genius have you not seen? No matter how talented you are, most geniuses, let alone enlightenment, are stuck in the realm of returning to the virtual world for their whole life, unable to make any progress. In the end, they lose all confidence and turn into a handful of lois after thousands of years. No matter how powerful the physique is, it will only be a flash in the pan, so what if the combat power is strong? Is it comparable to these powerful experts from Juzhu who have already entered the Hedeo realm? In the past, there were many talented people in the Fox clan, but in the end, there was not even one after the nine-tailed sky fox who could join the Tao. No, not to mention the Fox clan, looking at the entire demon world, there are only a few in the Hedeo realm, and they all appeared in the past 100,000 years. In this long history, the number of Hedeo realms that have appeared in the demon world is only 5 fingers, and there are only 2 survivors now. But Musian was different from any genius she had ever seen. To the nine-tailed sky fox, it didn't matter whether Musian was physically strong or a genius. What was important was that his natural furnace could evolve. Once those powerful men in Kyushu know his secret, I'm afraid they will try their best to get him. The nine-tailed celestial fox stared quietly, with charming eyes like silk, and couldn't help but think in his heart. Senior's words will definitely be remembered by this junior. Musian was very reserved and well behaved, and listened to the warning of the nine-tailed sky fox with an open mind. Of course, that's what he said, but the nine-tailed empress was obviously not well informed. Among the 9 states, there are already several great masters who already know his physical characteristics. Dongzhou aside, if Luotan, the empress of the Yuzhou immortal dynasty, knew that Musian had returned to the void, she would probably immediately send someone to entertain Musian. Maybe after the banquet made Musian a little drunk, he would take him back to his dormitory. The nine-tailed sky fox was very satisfied with Musian's attitude. He licked his lips, making them a little more rosy, and said, "Don't forget the agreement between you and me." Musian nodded reservedly. Junior always keeps his promises. Once he has said his word, he will definitely fulfill it. In the future, he will definitely try his best to make up for it. Boom! There was a roar from the avenue, which also meant that the oath came into effect. The nine-tailed sky fox nodded slightly, and kindly reminded Musian of another thing. By the way, if you want to leave the ancestral land now, you must be careful. There are powerful people fighting outside, and their momentum is amazing. If you are not careful, I'm afraid it will hurt you. Does your majesty know who the person you are fighting against is? Musian asked humbly. One's aura transcends the Hedeo realm, and the other one, hey, her aura seems to be very close to the feathering realm. No, she is not a feathering realm, but the heavens have not restricted her, so her combat power is similar to that of the feathering realm. Foreign gods are not affected by the rules of heaven and earth, so their combat power is extraordinary. However, Yao Meng is the human emperor after all, so there is no way he will be defeated, so there is no need to worry too much. Musian nodded slightly. Thank you for the reminder, madam. The nine-tailed sky fox glanced at him one last time, feeling a little more appreciative in his heart. This Musian was not as blindly arrogant as the geniuses she had seen in the past. He was good-looking and well-spoken. If she was reborn in the future, she could take him back to the demon world. She is not very interested in being the ruler of the demon world, but with her status, if she just brings a Dongzhou monk back to the demon world, the queen of the demon world will just turn a blind eye and pretend she didn't see it. After all, no matter what, the queen of the demon realm is considered a junior in front of her. The nine-tailed sky fox and the first-generation demon emperor are demons from the same generation. The queen of the demon world used to be one of the 13 seats of the first-generation demon emperor. However, her talent was amazing. The sky-swallowing demon body devoured many monks on the way to practice. In the end, became the youngest Hedeo power. The next moment, the nine-tailed sky fox turned into a wisp of pink smoke and floated into the natural furnace cauldron. Musian then breathed a sigh of relief. His back was already soaked with sweat. It's not because of fear, it's just because this nine-tailed empress is too hot. Just now, the nine-tailed sky fox did not deliberately make any seductive moves, but every move it made was full of charm that could drive men crazy. This is very similar to the queen of the demon realm. How come the demon world is full of such fairies? If I really reshaped the demon body for her and followed her back to the demon world, I might not be able to tolerate this woman in the future. Musian sighed inwardly. In refining the gods and returning to the realm of virtual reality, he took the path of strengthening his body's essence and blood. At the end of this path, he became the god of war. His essence and blood are indeed strong now, but it is still too difficult to suppress such a goblin. Musian took a step and walked out of the abyss. And almost the moment he stepped out of the abyss, he heard a burst of noise. The stone tablet of luck. There is a stone tablet of luck here. This voice full of excitement completely detonated the monks in front of the immortal Emperor Mountain. Huangfeng in the crowd looked even more excited, staring closely at the stone tablet. The only existence in this world that can grant others luck, apart from the Dao of heaven, is the spiritual dragon. Obviously, the previous rumors were true. The spirit dragon had visited the Blue Clan's ancestral land and left some good fortune here. Musian also heard the noise and looked forward. He saw that the two stone tablets that were originally standing in front of the abyss were emitting a charming light golden halo. Luck. As long as he could get the approval of this luck stone tablet, he could use this luck for his own benefit. You know, this kind of illusory thing, more than 99% of the cultivators may not be able to change it in their lifetime. Now such a good thing is right in front of him, how can he not be excited? How can there be a luck inheritance in this place? Musian was also stunned for a moment. Looking at the stone tablet in front of him, he quickly remembered that he seemed to have seen a similar stone tablet in the Linglong cave heaven of Lianji sect in the past. As soon as Musian thought of this, a silver hair suddenly flashed in front of him. He looked a little strange. He had the answer in his heart, but he remained calm on the surface and quietly left the crowd. When he arrived at the exit of the secret realm of Xianhuang Mountain, he stopped slightly. AAA. Then, Musian opened his mouth slightly and uttered a strange language that people could not understand. Almost as soon as he finished speaking, he felt a soft touch on his back. Then, a pair of hands covered his eyes. She asked, looking like she wanted to play a guessing game with him, but the moment she opened her mouth, her identity was instantly clear. Musian remained silent, thinking that Ling although I really want to act with you, your performance is too obvious, and I can't cooperate with you in the performance. Seeing that Musian didn't say anything, Lin Ling seemed a little unhappy, let go of Musian, puffed up his cheeks, and ignored him. Musian's vision recovered, and then he saw the silver-haired beauty in a white dress, with beautiful and delicate features, and a pretended indifference in her gorgeous red eyes as quiet as the sea. Ling why are you here? Musian didn't care. He held her hand and smiled, are you entangled by the fire again? When she heard the word fire, Lin Ling's calmness was broken in a second. Her pretty face turned red. She glanced at Musian and wrote in a small notebook, I'm worried about your safety, so I came to see you. With Yao Meng here, there's no need to worry too much, Musian said gently. Miss Linglong is simply the best. She can be controlled and cute, the most important thing is that she is well behaved and cute on weekdays, and occasionally she will have another side because of the fire when practicing dual cultivation. In the dim hall, Musian admired Lin Ling's face with a pink face. Then, he asked casually, by the way, you just came in from outside the ancestral land. Did you see who Yao Meng was fighting with? A woman in a black dress, I can't see her face clearly, Lin Ling wrote in a small notebook. I haven't seen that woman, she continued to write. Oh, that's fine, as long as they don't fight with the fish in my pond, Musian finally felt relieved. At this moment, at the end of the field of vision, a cultivator was coming on a sword. He looked panicked and was searching for something. Aren't you a member of the Blue Clan? Are you just coming to the ancestral land to take the test now? Musian recognized the identity of this person, who was one of the members of the Blue Clan. He stayed in the Blue Clan for a while, so he had a certain understanding of some of the members of the Blue Clan. Mr. Mu, I finally found you. As soon as he saw Musian, the young man's expression immediately became happy. He first looked at Lin Ling in confusion, and then hurriedly said, Young Master Lan Wu is asking you to go out and take a look. Musian nodded slightly. I know, you go out first, I'll be there soon. At present, Ruoxi is in retreat. There is no woman in Dongzhou who will conflict with Yao Meng. As long as there is no fire in his backyard, it doesn't matter. But of course, it is necessary to stop it appropriately. Yao Meng is in the Yuhua realm after all. If he razed the ancestral land of the Blue Clan to the ground, he would be embarrassed to see Sister Feiying and Senior Sister in the future. Let's go out and take a look first. Musian took Lin Ling's hand and leisurely left the exit along the Xianhuang Mountain. Xianhuang Mountain. This place is the ancestral land of the Blue Clan, and it has a history of at least tens of thousands of years from the past to the present. No demon dares to set foot here. It is a major fairy mountain in Dongzhou. However, at this moment, this fairy mountain is facing the possibility of being razed to the ground. Chi. The moment Mu Wanwan raised her hand, the formation under her feet instantly unfolded, blooming with brilliance, and directly killed Yao Meng, like a falling galaxy, with amazing momentum. Formation Master? Among the cultivators I know, only Sect Master Shang is proficient in formations. How could I see another one today? Yao Meng looked indifferent. She stepped half a step into the air with her bare jade feet. The rain curtain in the Blue Clan instantly stagnated and time stopped. The green figure disappeared, and the next moment, it appeared behind Mu Wanwan. Although I don't know who you are and why you approached him in the past, since you are his ex-girlfriend, don't pester me anymore. Yao Meng raised her hand and waved a blue lotus. The spiritual energy between heaven and earth rippled like ripples. The blue lotus emitted a charming halo in the next moment and fell from the sky, as if it wanted to seal Mu Wanwan directly. Such a surging spiritual energy made the cultivators below tremble with fear. They dared not stay here to watch the show and withdrew from Xianhuang Mountain one after another. Several elders of the Blue Clan also had their eyelids twitching wildly. Although they wanted to remind the two, they still held back. They couldn't afford to offend these two people, so they could only hope that they were rational enough, otherwise they would not be able to face their ancestors in the future. With a bang, the ground shook violently, and a formation appeared on Mu Wanwan's head at some point. The formation was a sword spirit. According to rumors, when the path of the weapon spirit reaches the end, he can use his bare hands, make weapons, and even enlighten them to bring the spirit of the weapon into the world. The sword spirit turned into a rainbow and struck at the pure world green lotus. While the pure world green lotus sealed it, its aura gradually weakened. Yao Meng narrowed her beautiful eyes and finally noticed something unusual about the woman in front of her. The 9 peaks of Lianji sect each have their own merits. The 9 ways of alchemy, weapon spirit, formation, swordsmanship, and natural principles can all reach the combined state. Your formations and weapon spirits have both reached the combined state, no wonder you have such confidence. Under normal circumstances, a person in the Hedeo realm will only follow one imperial path to the end. For example, the Qing Emperor is the path of meditation, the Queen of the Demon realm is the path of swallowing, Luo Tan is the path of alchemy, Gong Lianyu is the path of swordsmanship, etc. And the woman in front of her who calls herself Musian's ex-girlfriend has reached the end of the cultivator's path in 2 ways. But to challenge me with just 2 ways is to look down on yourself too much. Mu Wanwan was able to use weapon spirits and formations to resist Jingxi Qinglian twice, but what about the next time? Yao Meng stood in the sky, a ray of cyan light lit up on his fingertips. The pure green lotus bloomed silently, and a soft and faint light lit up under the dark sky. It was like the cold and lonely moonlight shining down like running water, penetrating through the lead-colored clouds in thousands of ways, as if to purify the whole world together. King Di has become serious, the expressions of many monks have changed, and they realize that something is wrong. Previously, Qing Emperor was obviously just relieved and not serious. At this moment, the aura exuded by the pure world green lotus seemed holy, but in fact it contained a dangerous aura. It is not difficult to imagine that if you touch that green lotus, you may be suppressed in an instant. The immortal Emperor Mountain rises and falls like the sea, and great turmoil sweeps across the entire ancestral land, but the mountain range never collapses, because the surrounding scenery is frozen in time and will not be shattered by the aftermath. The principle of time is too overbearing to be able to do this. Even the messenger of Sabbath has a little more thought in his eyes at this moment. The next moment, the pure world green lotus fell from mid-air, like a vast sea of stars shrouding it. Mu Wanwan raised her head, a strange light flashing in her beautiful eyes. She didn't make any move, she stood in mid-air, closed her eyes silently, her black and gold dress fluttering, looking unparalleled in her elegance. Yao Meng's beautiful eyes flashed slightly, staring at Mu Wanwan. She saw that this woman's body was like an illusion at the moment. Jingxi Qinglian could not sense her existence, but it penetrated directly through her body. Have you also mastered Dao Feng's natural method? Yao Meng whispered to himself, frowning slightly, staring at Muzian's ex-girlfriend. This woman is very strange. She is like a flying fairy from outside the world. She is obviously in the Hedeo realm, but unlike other Hedeo powers, this woman has 3 full ways of Tao and has come to an end. It seems that you have mastered more than 3 methods of the 9 peaks. Yao Meng's beautiful eyes narrowed, but since you are his ex-girlfriend, why are you so entangled with him now? Mu Wanwan smiled brightly, I didn't break up with him when I left Tianqian City. In fact, I don't think he was an ex-girlfriend. Yao Meng's expression was indifferent, her beautiful face was holy and charming under the light of the pure green lotus. She lightly opened her lips and said, he rarely mentioned you, because you are just a passerby in his life. I once heard him mention by chance that since you left, I have no contact with him. If this is not a breakup, what is it? Mu Wanwan wrote lightly, when he was intimate with me, he was at his most innocent age, and he had never even touched a woman. She raised her eyes and smiled softly, if Qing Emperor thinks that he really doesn't care about me, why has he never mentioned my matter to you, but kept it hidden in his heart? Yao Meng narrowed her beautiful eyes. If Muzian were present, she would definitely feel a little thumped in her heart, because every time Yao Meng showed this look, it meant that she was angry. Sure enough, when he heard Mu Wanwan's indifferent tone, Yao Meng's eyes revealed a dangerous look. Ex-girlfriend. As her eyes flickered, her eyebrows were slightly raised, as bright and holy as the bright moon, and her whole body was as if she were deep in the fairy world, like the mysterious goddess from the 9 heavens coming to the world, and she said softly, I hope you can still be as calm as you are now when you were suppressed by me and then watched your ex-boyfriend lean into my arms affectionately and call me Sister Kingdi. Anyone who is familiar with her should know at this moment that Yao Meng accepted the provocation from this ex-girlfriend and planned to use the power after becoming an ascension. When she raised her hand, time suddenly stopped. Jingxi Qinglian has sealed Mu Wanwan's weapon spirit, formation, and other 3 paths respectively. Now Mu Wanwan is just fish on the chopping board. A big battle broke out in an instant. The 4th purifying green lotus attacked Mu Wanwan. Even the Buddha who suppressed the western regions only used 1 purifying green lotus. This was the first time that Yao Meng used it. A woman with 4 pure green lotuses. Even with the blessing of heaven, it is already very remarkable. But, that's it? I would like to see how much Tao you have left to resist the pure world green lotus. Seeing the sword intent pouring out of Mu Wanwan's body, Yao Meng immediately raised his fingertips, and the pure world green lotus behind him bloomed like a peacock's tail. The 5th pure world green lotus suddenly fell down, and the world was moved. Shock. However, when the 5th pure world blue lotus shone on Mu Wanwan, a huge cauldron appeared above her head. The cauldron had bronze patterns and looked rusty, but it emitted a brilliance no less than that of the ancestral artifact, quietly dissolving the attack of the pure world blue lotus. Yao Meng's beautiful eyes flickered slightly, but this time, she did not attack Mu Wanwan again. In this world, it is impossible for a person in the Hedeo realm to reach the end of multiple different paths. There is only one exception. Yao Meng silently put away the pure world blue lotus blooming behind her. She looked at the woman in the black dress with a complicated look, and said faintly, "It turned out to be you." The exile of the clone is obviously a poisonous point in the online novel, but it is no longer poisonous after the gender is changed. Isn't it amazing? Laugh. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 472. Generally speaking, the top of this world is the Hedeo realm. It goes without saying that monks who can reach the end of this road have more strength, talent, and luck. But if you want to break through the limits of a monk and resonate with the Tao, you still need a very critical factor, which is self-confidence. Believe that your own Tao is invincible. Without such self-confidence, most Dao enlightenment monks will eventually be struck by the heavenly calamity and doubt their lives. Once their Taoist hearts are shaken, they will inevitably be destroyed by the heavenly calamity and become the nourishment of Kyushu. Normally, a monk would only follow one path to the end. Just like Muzian's body training, the end of his road is the god of martial arts. The Tao practiced by King Di must first purify the heart, and then purify all things in the world. Therefore, her final symbol after joining the Tao is the green lotus that purifies the world. Gong Lianyu is a special one. In her previous life, she followed the path of one sword breaks all laws. She developed sword intent when she joined the path. Any ordinary whiteboard sword in this world will have only one effect in her hand. Weaker than the power of the ancestral weapon. But in Bairuoxi's life, there was another way of charm, which was the body of the nine-tailed celestial fox. All in all, no matter who you are, usually you will only follow one path to the end. However, this is the first time Yao Meng has seen such a strange woman since he joined the Tao. This woman has come to the end of the 9 different ways of the 9 peaks of Lianji sect: alchemy, weapon spirit, sword intention, natural principles, deduction of heavenly secrets, etc., and has successfully survived the catastrophe. It is difficult to follow the Hedeo, and if you are not careful, it may turn into a handful of lois. Simply because the heavenly tribulations in the Hedeo realm are far beyond people's imagination. In the past, there have been countless examples of enlightened monks attacking Hedeo, but in the end they died unwillingly in the heavenly tribulations. But logically speaking, the way of heaven should not allow the emergence of a heterogeneous existence like Mu-1-1. If all 9 kinds of ways are harmonious, it is equivalent to the fact that there will be no great power in 9 lifetimes. You are very strong. You probably have more than 4 different ways, but you have already practiced all the techniques of the 9 peaks to the extreme. Yao Meng lightly opened her red lips, but her eyes remained quiet. She gave people a very special feeling. Both her immortal body and her voice were hazy. You could only vaguely see her graceful figure in the mist, but you couldn't see it clearly. As the fairy sound lingers, one can't help but feel excited. However, the moment she finished speaking, several elders of the Blue Clan in front of the ancestral land couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. They looked up in disbelief and looked at the Sabbath envoy. They felt that this woman was a little too outrageous. Is this something that humans can do? How many monks in Kyushu have worked hard to unite the Tao, but in the end they are inevitably sad. As a result, this woman actually brought 9 different Tao to an end. You must know that if you want to be in harmony with the Tao, you need to be firm and unwavering in your own Tao. Her ability to master the 9 peaks technique to the end means that she is unswerving in the Tao of the 9 peaks of Liangyi sect and firmly believes in herself. All 9 roads can be combined. It doesn't mean that the combination of 9 paths will make her invincible, but at least her methods will be more bizarre and changeable than any powerful one, making her hard to guard against. No wonder you have the confidence to mock me in front of me. Yao Meng spoke softly again. His body was completely shrouded in the fairy mist, making it difficult to see his face clearly. However, the more it was like this, the more people wanted to have a glimpse of the fairy face. Mu Wanwan said calmly, I'm not here to find you, it's just that Qing Emperor is too strong and wanted to suppress me after learning that I was his ex-girlfriend. Yao Meng took a deep look at Mu Wanwan and said quietly, the envoy of the Sabbath came to the ancestral land of the Blue Tribe to find someone like this. Do you think I should let you see him? Her smile was indifferent, but her heart felt a little weird and inexplicably unhappy. How could heaven choose her as the divine messenger of the Sabbath? This woman's position is undoubtedly completely contrary to the way of heaven. Logically speaking, it is impossible for heaven to hand over the position of divine envoy to Mu Wanwan. Unless, Tiandao also never noticed the true identity of this woman. Master Shang Yanfei, who is proficient in the art of the nine peaks and can even block the secrets of heaven. She dominates everything behind the scenes. The identity of her ex-girlfriend Mu Wanwan is her clone. Among the techniques of Dao Feng, there is a spell that, if practiced to the extreme, can transform three pure things into one spirit, and the dominant personality can bring its own will to that clone at any time. No wonder concubine Shang Yan did not make any movement when the Sabbath came. No wonder she is so calm, after all, she is the messenger chosen by heaven. Yao Meng narrowed her beautiful eyes, with a dangerous look in her eyes, you really have thoughts about him. Mu Wanwan smiled lightly and said, the person who is intimate with him is my will, not hers. You don't have to be so wary of her. Dao Feng's 1 Qi to 3 purity spell is a very magical spell. Unless the will of the master's personality occasionally comes to the clone, Mu Wanwan will be Mu Wanwan and not anyone else. Of course, whether there is self-will or not is something that the personality can decide for itself. Yao Meng has rich experience and has naturally heard of this method, but he didn't expect to see it with his own eyes today. You have been secretly paying attention to him since a long time ago, so when he was just ignorant of his feelings, you pretended to be an ordinary lady and happened to meet him by chance while passing by Tianqian City, right? Yao Meng asked. Road. Mu Wanwan smiled and said nothing. Seeing this scene, Yao Meng couldn't help but feel a bit of deep coldness in her eyes. Just imagine that when Muzian was still an innocent boy, his heartbeat would speed up even when he held a girl's hand, not to mention how he would feel when he kissed Mu Wanwan. If Muzian is compared to a piece of cake, then when he first came to Tianqian City, Muzian was still a freshly baked cake, and when he was just out of the oven, Muzian had already been eaten up by Mu Wanwan. Yao Meng's beautiful and refined face was expressionless as she looked at the woman in a black dress. After a while, she inadvertently withdrew her gaze and raised her fingertips. The two of them were separated by a curtain, and the cultivators from the outside world could no longer see what was happening here, nor could they hear any sound. You planned so many things just for that thing between men and women. Should I say that you are too bored in Lianji Peak, or that my husband is too charming and you can't help it, Master Shang? If the cultivators from the outside world heard this, they would be shocked. The Sabbath God's messenger is a clone of the master of Lianji section. This news is enough to cause a sensation in the whole Zhuzhou. At the beginning, I couldn't help it. She paused, looked at Fairy Yao Meng not far in front of her with a smile, and continued, if you knew that you would become a Taoist partner with him earlier, could you hold back? Yao Meng's eyes were rippling, her eyebrows were slightly raised, and she said lightly, Master Shang thinks that everyone will be like you and will attack a boy who is just beginning to fall in love. She raised her beautiful eyes, looked back at Mu Wanwan's eyes, and chuckled, if he knew that the sister of the master he respected was actually a woman with cultivation, I wonder what people who like him would think. Mu Wanwan did not deny, yes, I did see that he was ignorant of love, so I couldn't help but take action. If I have to say, what King Di said is not wrong. But The corner of the black-dressed woman's mouth raised a faint arc, and she whispered, "Kingdi, might as well close your eyes and think about what it feels like to be close to him who knew only a little about love at the beginning." Yao Meng's eyes were calm and indifferent, but there were ripples in her heart. In fact, it is not difficult to imagine that on one side is a boy who has never touched a woman, and on the other side is a female emperor who has already stood in the long river of history. Even if she pretends to be a young lady to approach him, Mu Wanwan is definitely the dominant party in terms of feelings. They would enjoy the peach blossoms in spring, travel and escape the heat in summer, watch the red maple leaves in autumn, sit in the house with a blazing charcoal fire and watch the heavy snow outside the window in winter, and then the plump and sexy elder sister would touch the back of the boy's hand intentionally or unintentionally, teasing his heartstrings, and when he finally mustered up the courage to hold her hand, she would tease him again. Then the two kissed for the first time in a state of tipsiness, and even. Yao Meng opened her eyes slightly, and there was a hint of depth in her emerald green eyes as clear as gems. It is impossible not to be jealous. Although she despised Shang Yanfei's behavior, if it was her at that time, I am afraid she would do more than Shang Yanfei. Mu Wanwan smiled, her voice was soft and gentle, and she said with a smile, "It seems that the Green Emperor feels the same as what I said. Could it be that the fairy who is holy and flawless in the eyes of the world has some special hobbies like me?" Seeing that Yao Meng was silent, Mu Wanwan was about to speak again. But who would have thought that Yao Meng's eyebrows gradually relaxed, and she smiled and said in a disinterested tone, "If I say I don't care about what happened between him and you in the past, it's all fake. If it were me, I would make the same decision as you. After all, who doesn't want to eat the first bite of freshly baked cake?" But Yao Meng changed her tone, and the fairy sound like the sound of nature slowly sounded in Mu Wanwan's ears. "Do you want to guess, if he makes a choice again now, will he choose you or me?" Miss Ex-girlfriend, she raised a dangerous arc at the corner of her mouth, deliberately emphasizing the word X. The air in the whole space seemed to be stagnant at this moment, and a deathly silence enveloped the space. During this period, when he was close to me, do you think he would think of you? Or would he call out the name of Sister Kingdi and bury himself in my arms? The indifferent smile on Mu Wanwan's face finally subsided a little. She is one of the avatars of one chi into three pure ones, but she also has her own will, so she naturally cares about Muzian. And hearing these words at this moment, it is inevitable to think too much. Yao Meng pinned the falling strands of hair behind her ears with her fingertips, and said with a smile, "How long have you been with him? Half a year? Or a year? During this period, how long have you been close to him?" Mu Wanwan opened her mouth slightly and was about to speak. "Hush." Yao Meng put her index finger in front of her red lips, tilted her head slightly, and smiled charmingly. "You probably haven't been close to him many times, right? So there is not much spiritual energy in his furnace that belongs to you. The natural furnace can only be given to others passively, while the original furnace can still absorb some of the spiritual energy of the dual cultivator. And the 8 desolate dream map skills and furnace he has now are all the spiritual energy I gave him. Even my own furnace is now filled with the heavenly spiritual energy he gave me. When you fought with me just now, I think you also felt this wonderful spiritual energy, right?" Yao Meng said quietly, "The so-called Muzian you call ignorant about feelings is indeed tempting. But the past is the past after all. He is now a good boy who often acts coquettishly towards his Kingdi sister. Should I give you a photo album next time to see if the woman he called on the bed was Sister Kingdi or your ex-girlfriend?" Suddenly, the offensive reversed instantly. Yao Meng stared at Mu Wanwan's crow-black dress fluttering in the cold wind, and said with a smile, "The others have come out, you might as well ask him who he misses the most so far." Mu Wanwan narrowed her beautiful eyes and glanced at the entrance of Immortal Emperor Mountain at her feet. There, a young man wearing a black robe with gold and silver threads was walking out of the entrance. Next to him was a silver-haired beauty. She was holding a small book. She looked cute, with a quiet look in her red star eyes. Color. Sensing the two people's silent gazes, Lin Ling subconsciously raised her head and glanced in the air. Although it was shrouded by the formation, she still captured the powerful aura in that direction. What's wrong, Ling-er? Did you find Yao Meng? Musian immediately noticed Lin Ling's gaze and looked up. In mid-air, lead-colored clouds shrouded the sky in a hazy sky. In the distance, a group of Blue Clan elders stood there with dull expressions, as if they were thinking about the purpose of this life's practice. Isn't it said that Yao Meng and the foreign gods of Sabbath are fighting? Where are the people? Musian asked doubtfully. Brother Mu, you figured it out. At this time, Lan Wu's voice of extreme joy came from the distance. He seemed to be relieved, and he immediately came up to Musian as soon as he saw him. Brother, do you have anything important to do? Musian greeted. Lan Wu was speechless. As soon as he heard Musian's name, he wanted to punch his handsome face. But after noticing the faint little look in the silver-haired beauty beside him, he coughed lightly, immediately restrained his impulse, and said seriously, Qing Emperor and the foreign apostle are fighting. I thought only you can stop Qing Emperor, so I sent someone to pick him up. You. Where is Yao Meng now? Musian asked hesitantly. Lan Wu pointed to a certain direction in the air. There, they used some kind of magic to completely isolate that space. I understand. Musian nodded slightly. He is very calm. As long as the fishes in the fish pond are not fighting, it will be much easier to deal with. Ling-er, can you take me in and take a look? Musian asked. Naturally, it would be difficult for him to enter the Hedeo realm, but with Lin Ling by his side, a person who always speaks and follows his words, it would not be difficult to enter the Hedeo realm. Not only did he awaken the nine-tailed sky fox this time, but he also received a ray of chaos energy. After that, when the natural furnace cauldron can refine this ray of chaos energy, he can go to find the elder sister. It can be said that this trip to the ancestral land has been profitable. After I go back later, I can even enjoy Sister Kingdi's knee pillow for a while, and then go to Ling-er for in-depth communication at night. Musian looked at Lin Ling with a cute look on his face, and began to dream about all the wonderful things he would have after returning. At this moment, Lin Ling grabbed Musian's palm and opened her red lips. The next moment, the two figures disappeared into the ancestral land and appeared in the realm of Hedeo without any sky or earth. A green skirt passed in front of his eyes. Musian raised his head and looked, and he saw the slender figure in the green skirt. The jade feet are dancing, the fairy mist is lingering, and the figure is hazy and beautiful. Musian was about to send a message, but at this moment, the divine messenger opposite Yao Meng seemed to be aware of Musian's presence and looked up. Musian's eyes met hers, and a woman in a black dress came into view. I seem to have seen her before. Musian looked at those familiar beautiful eyes and frowned slightly, feeling that she had seen her before. Boom. Then, at this time, there was a thunderous sound in Musian's mind, and the door of long-dusted memory slowly opened, and that alluring face and familiar eyes came into view. After being stunned for an unknown amount of time, Musian closed his eyes slightly, as if the way he opened them just now was not quite right, and he even felt that he was dreaming. A. Lin Ling gently tugged at the corner of Musian's clothes and let out a soft and melodious voice. Musian then slowly opened his eyes and noticed the gazes of Yao Meng and Mu Wanwan at the same time. After being stunned for an unknown amount of time, he murmured. It's over, I forgot that there was another fish that slipped through the net. The monthly pass blades have been reset in the last 3 days, please give me a wave of blades and monthly passes. Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 473. The Hedeo realm is completely isolated between heaven and earth, and no abnormalities can be seen from the outside world, as if this realm does not exist in space. There were no flowers, grass, or trees around, and in the formation, there were faint ripples of spiritual energy, and a beautiful woman was staring at him with her beautiful eyes. The raven black dress was trimmed with gold and silver threads, which further highlighted her luxury. When the cold wind blew, the dress flew back, which perfectly highlighted her plump and elegant figure. There is no doubt that Mu Wanwan is indeed a great beauty. However, Musian's focus at the moment is not to admire her beauty, but to stare blankly at those beautiful pale golden eyes. He had a sense of déjà vu. Not only are those eyes extremely familiar, even the cup size looks familiar. Of course, now is not the time to think about such things. Musian himself also knows that he is walking at the most critical intersection in his life. If this wave is not handled well, you may have to go directly to the dark room. Noticing the half-smiling look in Sister Kingdee's eyes, Musian coughed lightly and said, "Have all the matters regarding the Yaokai Holy Land been dealt with?" Lin Ling on the side looked at the woman in the black dress strangely. Although it was difficult to see her face clearly, it was not difficult to see that the woman was extremely elegant. There seemed to be a black mist under her feet. AAA. She made a confused voice and looked at Mu Wanwan strangely, always feeling an inexplicable sense of familiarity. She wanted to think about it, but she still consciously stepped aside without disturbing the current harmony. She fiddled with the deerskin bag for a while and took out a meat bun wrapped with butter paper. All he needs is a chair and a bench to be a melon eater. A faint smile appeared on Yao Meng's lips, and she looked at the young man. Actually, there is no way to deal with it. The Queen Mother of Yaokai is here. In fact, I just need to make a final decision. Compared to those trivial things in Yaokai, I care more about you. If I don't come today, I might not have a chance to see her. At the end of the sentence, Yao Meng stepped on the void and walked leisurely to Musian's side, placing his hands gently on his shoulders. She raised her head, a smile blooming on her pure and beautiful face. "Really, Miss Ex-Girlfriend?" Musian's scalp felt numb. "It's not up to you to decide whether you are your ex-girlfriend or not." Mu Wanwan looked at Musian with a faint look, and said softly, "We haven't seen each other for a long time, don't you have anything to say?" Musian maintained a calm smile on the surface, but in fact, there was already a storm in his heart. Naturally, he still has memories about Mu Wanwan, although they are very vague. But if Yao Meng is not here at this moment, Mr. Mu would not mind sacrificing himself and breaking into the enemy for the sake of peace in Kyushu. Then, after successfully conquering Sabbath's god's envoy, she gave an order and all the foreign apostles withdrew from Kyushu. It's just that it's not appropriate for him to speak or not at the moment. Between his current girlfriend and his ex-girlfriend, there was no problem in favoring Yao Meng, but he always felt sorry for Mu Wanwan. Although Mu Wanwan left Tianqian City silently, the two there was no mention of breaking up, but Musian took it as a default breakup at that time. But he didn't expect that this woman would actually appear in front of him as a god's messenger. And it gave him such a big surprise when he first appeared. As for Ling you can do something useful, don't just focus on eating. Musian desperately winked at Lin Ling, who was still nibbling on the meat buns as a cook. However, the natural beauty blinked her red eyes, looked at him cutely, and took a bite of the meat buns she just took out from Naja. Tilting his head, AAA. Musian held his forehead silently. For a moment, he couldn't tell whether this idiot was pretending to be stupid or if he really didn't understand the current situation. Musian couldn't help but miss his sister Mengru. Wei Mengru has been in the Yaokai Holy Land these past few days and has not left. After all, Musian gave her a seed of enlightenment. The seed of enlightenment can only be completely refined when she returns to the virtual world, and now she is refining that seed. The seed of enlightenment. If she were here. Oh, She might want her master to die, and maybe she would watch the show with Lin Ling. Musian withdrew his gaze silently. There is no hope for this Lin Ling. Musian calmed down his thoughts for a moment, raised his head and looked at Mu Wanwan, and said with a smile, "It's been a long time since I last saw you. I didn't expect to see you in this way this time." Mu Wanwan frowned inadvertently and said, "Don't you have anything to ask me?" When she was in the Hedeo realm, Musian was just a young monk in the refining realm. But now Musian is not curious about why she approached him in the past. Yao Meng subconsciously looked at Musian, and she soon discovered that Musian's expression was gradually changing. There was a bit more sadness in his expression. "Of course I have many questions to ask you, but I won't ask them now." Musian raised his head and said softly, "It's not too late if you want to tell me." He was very free and easy, and completely tolerated everything about Mu Wanwan. He didn't care at all why she approached him, and he didn't even ask. Not only Yao Meng was stunned by this answer, but Mu Wanwan was also hesitant. Why, she couldn't help asking. There seems to be nothing wrong with this wave of emotional cards. Musian thought about it for a while, and his mood immediately dropped. He stared at Mu Wanwan complicatedly. After a long time, he raised his head slightly, looked up at the dark sky, and said quietly, "Have you ever wanted to harm me before?" Before Mu Wanwan could speak, Musian retracted his gaze, stared at her, and continued, "Since there is no such thing, isn't that enough? The time I spent with you is one of my most unforgettable memories. No matter why you approached me, I am very happy." Musian said sincerely. Yao Meng watched silently and never said a word. Mu Wanwan's heart moved. "So, you don't blame me for leaving without saying goodbye?" Musian shook his head. "It's impossible to say that I'm not to blame, it's just that the past things are in the past, and you have your own reasons. Now you have also become the envoy of the Sabbath. I am very happy that you're not in the spaceship in Dongzhou. Mu Wanwan is a monk from Dongzhou, but she is also the divine envoy chosen by heaven." Musian didn't know which side she was on, but at least it was certain that the two foreign gods on the Dongzhou spaceship did not agree with her ideas, otherwise she would not have left alone. Mu Wanwan looked at Musian with complicated eyes. If she was close to Musian when she was in Tianqian City in the past because her subject personality missed him, then now she is also towards Musian. A little more special emotion. She came to see Musian this time, and she was prepared to inform Musian of her identity, but the other party's answer was beyond her expectation. At this moment, the two of them looked at each other, seeming to be reminiscing and thinking about the past. "You didn't come to him this time just to catch up with an old lover, right?" At this time, a soft fairy sound sounded, which also brought their thoughts back to reality. Yao Meng glanced at Mu Wanwan and said calmly, "The Sabbath has come several times in the past. Although it did not really affect Zhou's luck, this time it caused a big commotion as soon as the Sabbath came. Miss Mu came to see him rashly. If you don't explain the reason clearly, I'm afraid I won't be able to let you go easily." She believed that concubine Shangyan was on Musian's side, but she always maintained a trace of doubt about Mu Wanwan's identity. This woman is indeed probably one of the clones of concubine Shangyan who transformed into the three pure ones. However, this clone seems to have its own will. Concubine Shangyan's real body cannot leave Lianji sect due to some special reasons. So, as a clone, can Mu Wanwan be controlled by concubine Shangyan? You are right, I am indeed not controlled by her now. As if she guessed what Yao Meng was thinking, Mu Wanwan gradually regained her composure and answered calmly. Yao Mei's eyes narrowed and she whispered, "Because, the Sabbath. On this Sabbath, heaven chose the most unlikely person to be the envoy." Yao Meng didn't know the reason, but she guessed that it had something to do with concubine Shangyan blocking the secret of heaven. To Tiandao, Mu Wanwan is now Mu Wanwan, so it chose Mu Wanwan as its divine envoy. Once concubine Shangyan's will comes, there will be loopholes in the shielding technique she deployed in the past. As long as heaven is aware of it, it is likely that it will choose the divine envoy again. Mu Wanwan smiled brightly. Qing Emperor, you are very smart. No wonder there were countless monks pursuing you before you joined the Tao. What are you talking about? Why don't you take me with you? Mu Jian just thought of this and was about to speak. At this moment, he found Mu Wanwan walking towards him. Yao Meng looked at her calmly, but did not stop her until she saw Mu Wanwan walking in front of Mu Jian. Then, I heard her say, remember, no matter who denies you, you must firmly believe that you are right. Besides. She paused for a moment, and under Yao Meng's slightly frozen gaze, she lowered her head and kissed Mu Jian on the lips, and said softly, haven't seen you for a long time. Those words were like a heavy hammer hitting Mu Jian's heart. He suddenly raised his head and stared into those beautiful pale golden eyes. This sentence looked familiar. He had also seen this sentence in the black box. Is it a coincidence? Or should I say? Mu Jian did not dare to think too much, or in other words, the amount of information was too large and he could not fully digest such a huge amount of information at once. Mu Wanwan didn't speak again. Black mist silently enveloped her body. The next moment, her figure turned into black particles and drifted away in the wind. Everyone has left, haven't you come to your senses yet? Yao Meng looked at Mu Jian's astonished expression and said calmly, have you even forgotten the people around you after meeting your ex-girlfriend? Mu Jian reluctantly came back from his thoughts and sighed, I'm just sighing. What are you sighing for? Yao Meng asked with a smile. Mu Jian turned back to look at her. At this moment, Yao Meng was standing behind him. His body was shrouded in hazy fairy mist, and his seductive collarbones were vaguely exposed. A belt outlined his plump and straight breasts. Under the hem of his skirt, his long, snow-white plump legs were slightly close together, naked. The glistening white jade feet stared straight at him. Mu Jian stretched out his hand to grab her soft little hand and said softly, I lament that when I was a young monk, she actually fell in love with me and even dated me. He paused and stared deeply. To me, Sister Kingdi is also such a person. I know that in the eyes of Sister Kingdi, even now I am just a little cultivator, but even so, you are willing to stay by my side to accompany me. For me, now I am very satisfied. Yao Meng stared at Mu Jian with a smile and said, how are you going to deal with the ex-girlfriend? What happened between you and her in the past? She always cared about what happened between Mu Jian and Mu Wanwan when they were in Tianqian City. Also, when he was innocent, did that woman take away his first kiss and the first double cultivation? Although N.T.R is indeed a pleasant thing, it is still a bit jealous for the first person to eat the cake. Mu Jian couldn't help but smile when he heard it, and said, how is it possible? I didn't have any particularly intimate things with her. At most, when I was dating her. Mu Jian's voice suddenly stagnated, a little confused, and Yao Meng's beautiful face was reflected in his eyes. Yes, what did I do when I was dating Mu Wanwan? He remembered Mu Wanwan, but when he wanted to recall the experiences he had with her, he found that those memories were very vague. He could only vaguely remember her smile and appearance, but they were very vague, just like an old film projector, and the images in his mind were all hazy. At this time, a slightly cool palm gently placed on his face, and Mu Jian woke up from his thoughts just now. Through the hazy fairy mist, he saw this holy and flawless face and the gentle green eyes. Since you don't remember it, forget it, after all, the past is over. Now it's enough for you to just remember my things. After eating the meat buns, Lin Ling looked up at Yao Meng, then looked at Mu Jian a few more times, and then silently lowered her head. This was only when she was unhappy. Such a gentle gaze, coupled with that exquisite and flawless fairy face, it would be a lie to say that Mu Jian was not moved. But he still realized the existence of Lin Ling and was about to say something. At this moment, he suddenly felt a shocking thunder between heaven and earth. Yao Meng raised his hand to converge the Hedeo domain. The sky outside was much gloomier than before. The world seemed to be filled with the breath of destruction, and silence enveloped the entire ancestral land. The lead-colored clouds were moving silently towards a certain direction of Dongzhou with the wind. Yao Meng stared for a moment, and soon realized something, and said to himself, "The heavenly tribulation in the Sword Palace. So Ruoxi will soon ascend to the sky? In this way, at least there will be no complete crushing in the fish pond after this. But the premise is that she can successfully ascend to the sky." Musian's eyes flickered slightly, and he remembered that the western regions and the southern wilderness had tried every means to prevent Yao Meng from ascending to the sky. "You don't have to worry about her safety." At this time, Yao Meng suddenly said casually, "The last time several powerful people in Zhuzhu stopped me from ascending to the sky, it was because Zhuzhu had not yet appeared in the Yuhua realm. But this time I am here, no one will stop her from ascending to the sky." Musian was a little surprised and said, "Are you willing to help her? Don't ask me even though you know the answer. I won't repay kindness with hatred." Yao Meng glanced at him with a reproachful look and said unhappily, "After all, she helped me in the past, and she is your Taoist partner. How can I stand by and watch?" "But..." She raised a sexy arc at the corner of her mouth, leaned down, leaned close to Musian's ear, and whispered, "How to repay my sister, you should understand, right? The monthly ticket will be reset on the last day, hint." So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 474. Sword Palace. This suspended city, which is always suspended in the sky over Dongzhou, is surrounded by more than 100 lightsabers. The light is centered on the Sword Palace and slowly spreads like ripples to the surroundings, making it look particularly magnificent and magnificent. But today, the sky is filled with gloomy clouds, black clouds are pressing over the city, and lightning flashes between the clouds, as if they are about to tear the entire sky apart. The tall beauty was carrying a rusty ancient bronze sword. Her black hair was draped like a waterfall. Her white palace skirt was blown by the wind and clung to her bulging and tight sexy figure. Her breasts proudly held up the fabric, as if in the wind. Ripple. Ruoxi rolled up her slightly lazy and messy hair and asked softly with a soft voice, "Is the palace master ready?" The last time the Qing emperor emerged and ascended, powerful powers from all sides were secretly obstructing him in every possible way. And this time Gong Lianyu may have the same experience. It will even be more troublesome than Qingdi. After all, the Ascension realm is equivalent to completely breaking away from the control of heavenly law. It is neither restricted by heavenly rules, nor is it an uncontrollable factor. This is something that cannot be allowed by heavenly law. The last time the Qing emperor became immortal and ascended, he confused everyone's attention in the name of a wedding, but this time Gong Lianyu became immortal and ascended, it was different. Even the most difficult inner demon tribulation has been overcome, so what will happen to the feathered heavenly tribulation? Gong Lianyu said calmly. At this moment, the only sword emperor in Kyushu is holding the sword with both hands, leaning lazily on the world of the heart, adjusting his state. Unlike Ruoxi, she was dressed in a black palace dress and had an awe-inspiring aura, which was completely opposite to a weak young lady like Ruoxi. In a sense, this inner demon calamity is all thanks to the Qing emperor, Ruoxi said softly. If it weren't for her, I would have spent a lot of energy on the inner demon tribulation. After that, I would have to deal with the feathering heaven tribulation, and I would be a little exhausted mentally and physically. Gong Lianyu snorted coldly, "Does she really want to help me? It's just a conspiracy." Although she said this, the female sword emperor still felt a little more entangled in her heart. The most difficult thing to break through in the feathering tribulation is the heart demon tribulation. It is impossible for a human being to be free from worries and will always have desires, even if he is a powerful person. She thought that she would encounter many obstacles during this inner demon tribulation, but in the end, she got through this inner demon tribulation very easily this time. There are 3 levels of inner demon tribulation, and one of the inner demons Gong Lianyu encountered was her lifelong pursuit, to become immortal and become immortal. Secondly, I want to experience the beauty of the natural furnace again, preferably Musian when he was a big boy. As for the third one, he would tie up the holy and noble fairy in the eyes of the world with a concentric lock, so that Qing Emperor could watch how his husband was bullied by her. The last 2 inner demons are related to Musian. Under normal circumstances, most people will get lost in the inner demon tribulation, or in other words, immersed in the scene woven by the inner demon tribulation. Even the most magnificent sword emperor like Gong Lianyu was no exception. However, she had gone into seclusion with anger before. Until the second before the seclusion, all she could think about was how to tie up Qingdi, a bitch, and then let Qingdi watch the cake being bitten by her. Eat it clean bit by bit. Therefore, even in retreat, Gong Lianyu's obsession still exists. But this kind of obsession has unexpectedly become the key to overcoming the evil tribulation of happiness. She knew clearly that what Qing Emperor was using was a conspiracy, but there was nothing she could do about it. After all, no matter what, the final result was that she did get help from Qing Emperor this time. Although the evil fairy probably just wanted to enjoy the pleasure of the green man. Bairuoxi walked out of the sword palace in the cold wind, her long hair spread to her slender waist, and there seemed to be a faint golden sword light shining behind her. At this time, she suddenly seemed to feel something. She turned her head and looked around, and she saw that the familiar figure of the young man had come into view at some point. Malang. Bairuoxi's originally cold eyes softened a bit. After staring for a moment, her eyes inadvertently looked at Yao Meng beside her. Qing Emperor is here too. Yao Meng's eyebrows were raised slightly, and she felt as if she was in a fairyland. Her seductive red lips parted slightly and she said, "Palace Master, you can safely go through the calamity today. I will protect you." Her voice was calm, but it was slowly rippling around with spiritual energy. The pleasant and plain voice sounded like a heavenly voice to the ears of the monks from Dongzhou, but the higher the level of the monks, the more dangerous the words were. For the ancient creatures that were originally a little bit impatient, this sound was like setting off a storm in their hearts. The Qing Emperor actually wanted to protect the Lord of the Sword Palace and help her ascend to heaven. These ancient creatures are difficult to understand, and they feel that Qing Emperor has other agendas. After all, she could have been invincible in Kyushu, but now she is helping others and only causing trouble for herself. The next moment, Bairuoxi's flawless white palace skirt was gradually eroded by black patterns. Gong Lianyu slowly opened her eyes and looked in the direction of Yao Meng. "You don't have to be grateful to me. You have helped me before, and this time I will repay you for protecting me. It has nothing to do with anything else." As if he understood what White House Lianyu was thinking, Yao Meng said softly with a smile on his face. Gong Lingyu snorted coldly, and her figure turned into a burst of divine light and soared into the sky, as if she was above the 9 heavens. The 108 lightsabers outside the sword palace dimmed quietly, turning into Gong Lingyu's nourishment. A golden sun appeared behind her, like a sky fire hanging in the sky. In Dongzhou, countless long-forgotten swords all made sword sounds. Many cultivators tried their best to suppress their swords with spiritual energy and prevent them from being unsheathed. However, as Gong Lianyu stretched out her hand, thousands of spiritual swords rushed to the sword palace as if they had their own spiritual consciousness. There is only one sword emperor in the world. Although she cut the heavenly Dao herself in the past, causing damage to the furnace, she also repaired it under Musian's careful care, and even walked her own path again, resonating with the new heavenly Dao, so her strength is naturally extraordinary. There was a loud rumbling sound in the sky, which seemed to shatter the sky, and it suddenly shocked the entire Dongzhou. Some old monsters who were originally sleeping opened their eyes one after another, angrily intending to find the person who disturbed them, then rushed out of the closed cave and looked up, and returned to the cave in silence. You and Ling Long stay in the Sword Palace, I will go to protect her. After Yao Meng finished speaking, her immortal body gradually became hazy, and turned into a ray of green light and flew into the sky. It's great that the fish in the fish pond know how to help each other, and it's worth my painstaking efforts in the past. Musian looked at this harmonious scene and felt relieved. Oh, it would be even better if Yao Meng was willing to be with Ruoxi someday. At this moment, Lin Ling suddenly gently pulled the corner of Musian's clothes and wrote something in a small notebook. Musian thought she was concerned about what she had just said to Yao Meng, but when she turned her head and took a look, she saw Lin Ling writing crookedly in the small notebook, "How can there be chaotic energy in your body? Can you sense what is in my natural furnace?" Musian was surprised and a little incredible. Lin Ling pointed at Musian's ring and continued to write, "I gave you the magic weapon that shielded the Tiansheng furnace, and I am more sensitive to magic weapons." Musian thought to himself that he didn't know that Linger could actually find treasures. No wonder she was called the daughter of the Great Way. Then, he took out a talisman from the ring. The talisman was painted with creatures like ghosts. This was the shielding magic weapon that Musian got from Lin Ling in the past. As long as he carried it, the Tiansheng furnace would be difficult to be detected. Unless Musian deliberately leaked the news of the Tiansheng furnace. The chaotic energy was personally handed into my body by the ancestor of the Blue Clan when I went to the ancestral land of the Blue Clan not long ago, Musian explained. Lin Ling nodded. AAA, her transparent red star eyes were as bright as gems, and she looked thoughtful. What's wrong? Why are you suddenly asking me if I have the energy of chaos in my body? Musian looked up and stared. Because the two were close to each other, he seemed to smell a faint floral scent like morning dew. He looked at the silver-haired beauty in front of him and smiled. Could it be that Linger is also interested in the energy of chaos? Lin Ling stood in front of the ancient gate of the Sword Palace, wearing a white silk dress, and wrote, "In the past, she said that if there is the energy of chaos, it can suppress bad luck for a long time." She. Musian's eyes moved slightly, as if he realized something, and said, "Are you talking about the sect master?" The sect master's luck really had some problems, and it was continuous. If not, Lin Ling had clearly transferred the sect master's bad luck to herself at the beginning, so how could the sect master have the trouble of bad luck again now? Lin Ling nodded. "Unfortunately, my natural furnace is still unable to refine this wisp of chaotic energy." Musian's tone was a little more regretful. What the Tiansheng furnace cannot refine, naturally the Hedeo realm masters cannot refine either, otherwise Lan Shiwei would have probably refined it long ago. Because, although the Tiansheng furnace is passive, this Tiansheng furnace is equivalent to the furnace of the Hedeo realm when Musian is refining the spirit and returning to the void, and even a real heaven is sealed inside. And the Hedeo realm is already the top of the cultivators, and the next level of the immortal is actually the Hedeo realm that is not restricted by the rules of heaven and earth. This means that the chaos energy was not something for cultivators to refine from the beginning, but I don't know why this holy object of the early chaos fell into Lan Shiwei's hands, and the other party gave it directly to him. It's a pity that if he could refine the chaos energy, he could help the sect master's sister. Musian felt a little regretful. He respected the sect master very much in his heart, and the reason he wanted to help was that he couldn't bear to see her being entangled in bad luck. After all, bad luck that even Shang Yanfei couldn't deal with, it's enough to imagine how tricky it is. I have a way to help you refine the chaotic energy. At this time, Lin Ling suddenly raised the small notebook and wrote on it. Musian was suspicious. Really? I don't believe it. How to do it? Then, he quickly asked again. However, after saying that, Lin Ling never said a word. In the entire Sword Palace, only the deafening sound of thunder could be heard. The lightning dragon swimming in the air flashed, and the breath of destruction enveloped the sword palace. The lightning flashed, illuminating the delicate face of the silver-haired beauty in the dimness. She lowered her head slightly, and her long eyelashes covered her gorgeous red eyes, as if to cover the faint blush on her face. Musian asked calmly, "Is it related to dual cultivation?" Lin Ling shook her head quickly. Afterwards, she wrote in the small notebook, "The third heavenly energy will allow your natural furnace to refine all the treasures of heaven and earth in the world." Muse Hainan said, "Since you are just giving me the energy of heaven, then why are you blushing? Wouldn't it be nice to just hand over the third piece of heavenly Dao Qi to me and let me refine it? In that case, why are you blushing so much? Or is it that my Linger hasn't been intimate for a few days and already wants the spiritual energy from heaven?" Musian had a gentle smile on his face. As he spoke, he gently held Lin Ling's delicate body in his arms and gently stroked her silky silver hair. He could clearly feel Lin Ling's body stiffen at first, and then gradually relax. She closed her eyes slightly in Musian's warm embrace, and subconsciously wrapped her arms around his shoulders, immersed in the boy's warmth. After an unknown amount of time, she patted Musian's shoulder gently, then broke away from his arms and handed him the small book she had just written. "The karma of the past burned the body, and the aura of heaven was one of the reasons, but if you only hold one heavenly Dao Qi, it doesn't matter. When I only hold one piece of heavenly energy, it will also suppress some of my karmic fire," she continued to write. Musian understood that it was not that Lin Ling could not refine the Qi of heaven, but that she could not refine multiple Qi of heaven at the same time. Even if he is in the Hedao realm, he can usually only refine one heavenly Dao Qi, not to mention that Lin Ling has a special physique and is already disturbed by karma fire. If she only holds one Tiandao Qi, it won't have much impact on her. If that's the case, then why don't you keep the last breath of heaven? Lin Ling shook her head gently, put up a small notebook and wrote, "Only by handing over the three heavenly Dao Qi to you can I be truly free from now on." Her eyes had always been clear and bright in the past, but when she wrote this, her eyes were a little shy and evasive. She lowered her eyes slightly, and turned the page of the small book again. "After the third heavenly energy is given to you, the karmic fire will be more severe than before in a short period of time, but it will gradually get better, and in the end, the karmic fire will completely disappear." Musian was stunned for a moment. He finally came to his senses and said hesitantly, "You mean, after I refine the third heavenly Dao Qi, I have to help you, until the karma fire is completely suppressed?" No wonder Lin Ling, who was eating meat buns just now, is so red now. It turns out this is what happened. Musian swallowed slightly and asked tentatively, "How long will it take?" Lin Ling put her slender legs together, lowered her head, and buried her face behind a small book. She only looked at him shyly with a pair of moist red star eyes. "Not sure, it will probably take a little longer than before." She marked a small distance with her fingers. "Well, if the time is only a little longer than before, there would be no problem. It's just that Yao Meng is still protecting Ruoxi and the others now, and he doesn't know how long it will take for it to end." Musian subconsciously looked at the woman in white dress who was going through the tribulation in the distance, and Yao who was protecting Gong Lianyu outside the formation. Dream. He quickly gathered his thoughts, looked at Lin Ling, and said, "In that case, after their tribulation is over and we return to the sect, will you transfer the third heavenly energy to me?" However, as soon as he finished speaking, he saw Lin Ling's red lips slightly parted. The next moment, everything in front of him seemed to have shifted. The moment they escaped into the void, the two of them appeared in Liangyi sect. Musian was silent for a long time, and was temporarily paralyzed by Lin Ling's operation. Is she so anxious to give the energy of heaven to herself? Or is it that the Qi of heaven is just a cover, and this pure and lovely silver-haired beauty has already begun to taste the marrow after trying it a few times? She won't regard this as her favorite snack in the future and want to enjoy it every few hours. Muzian looked at the silver-haired beauty in front of her, her seductive shoulders exposed under the white dress, her silver hair that slightly covered her pure face, and her sexy red lips that were as thick as gelatin. At this moment, Muzian's beautiful face was still there. All worries about his future were suddenly forgotten. Well, if it's if she really wants to be intimate, it's not like she can't stay with her all the time. After all, it feels good to see a normally innocent and cute beauty showing a shy posture and then looking at you longingly. It can be said that Lin Ling's personality is exactly the opposite of Yao Meng's. If it were Yao Meng, she would be the one taking the initiative. But no matter what, it is impossible to really stay in Lianji Peak at the moment. If Yao Meng can't find anyone after finishing protecting Ruoxi, I'm afraid he will have to lift up the entire Dongzhou. Muzian quickly gathered his thoughts and opened his mouth slightly, about to speak. Why did you bring him here? At this moment, a voice suddenly came from not far away. Muzian looked in the direction of the sound, and found that they were in a mountain forest in Lianji Peak. Not far away, ancient trees towered into the sky, and the leaves were rustling in the wind. The tall, mature woman was leaning against the tree trunk, with her legs bent, sitting quietly under the big tree. She was wearing a black dress with peach blossom patterns embroidered on it, and a pair of white jade feet were vaguely exposed under the black skirt. Her appearance was so beautiful that men could be uncontrollably attracted to her at first sight. She was mysterious and alluring. It's just that I don't feel any pressure from her, just like an ordinary person. For some reason, Muzian felt a sense of déjà vu when he looked at this scene. He stared at her face, trying to memorize her appearance, but just by moving his eyes away for a moment, he would unconsciously forget her appearance. As if aware of the two people's gaze, Shang Yanfei slowly opened her eyes and gently lifted a strand of hair that fell from her ear. When he looked up, his beautiful pale golden eyes showed a hint of surprise for the first time, and he said softly, "Did she give the energy of chaos to you early? Finally asking for a ticket at the end of the month." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 475. Sword Palace. Amidst the roar of thunder, thousands of spiritual swords surrounded by Ruoxi. The rules of heaven and earth became extremely strict at this moment, as if they wanted to limit the emergence of the Ascension realm. After all, the Ascension realm is not within the scope of the rules of heaven and earth, and is not good for the way of heaven. However, with the position of heaven, he has never resonated with the three realms of heaven, earth, and people in Kyushu. Even the rules of heaven and earth can only be slightly restrictive, but they still cannot stop by Ruoxi's ascension. Yao Meng's blue dress is fluttering, her jade feet are crystal clear, stepping on the void, her hair is blowing in the wind, she is as cold as a fairy in a painting. She quietly protected the Sword Emperor from the side, frightening those taboo creatures that were lurking in the dark and seemed to be unable to sit still. Not only in Dongzhou, but also in Zhuzhou at this moment, there are powerful people who are secretly watching this scene. It's just that this time is different from the past. This time, with Qing Emperor personally protecting the law, no one dared to do anything. And those gods who just descended from the alien starry sky not long ago are even more confused at this moment. It is obvious that the rules of heaven and earth are restricted. However, in this case, there are still powerful people in the Hedeo realm who forcibly break through the restrictions of heaven and earth. Feathered and ascended? Something is not right. If the Qing Emperor's emergence is a coincidence, then there is something wrong with the Sword Emperor's emergence as well this time. At this moment, Huang Weifeng, who had just left the ancestral land, also noticed the terrifying aura of destruction in Dongzhou. At the same time, the soft murmur of a woman in a white dress sounded in his heart. Master, could it be that, the ascension can be artificial, Huangfeng asked from the bottom of his heart. In the Naja, Shuiyi, who was wearing a white dress, was sitting in the void. Her posture was elegant, but her expression was a bit solemn and thoughtful. Hearing Huangfeng's words, she shook her head gently. It would be too incredible to say it was man-made. I have never heard that a human emperor can be created man-made. This time in the Blue Clan's ancestral land, Huangfeng gained quite a lot with her help. Although he did not receive the blessing of luck left by the spirit dragon, he also got a piece of equipment in the ancestral land. Second-grade formations and a lot of elixirs. These pills are of little help to the gods of the southern wilderness, but they are of considerable help to Huangfeng's level. Musian entered the abyss and hasn't come out yet. Master, should we stay here and wait for him to come out, and then? Huangfeng's eyes flashed with severity. You don't have any deep grudge against Musian. Besides, he has Emperor Qing behind him. It's not a good thing to attack him rashly. Besides, he is now in the realm of returning to the virtual world. Are you really sure you can deal with him? When Huangfeng heard this, he once again recalled the scene in his mind when he was defeated by Musian in front of so many people in the Blue Clan's main hall. Obviously he has never experienced a defeat since time travel, but he was defeated at the hands of a small villain, and in front of the Blue Sisters. When Huangfeng thought of this, he clenched his fists subconsciously, and there was more in his chest. Somewhat angry. His original plan was to find another chosen one and form an alliance with her. It would be better if the relationship could heat up during this period. But he didn't expect that Musian would have established a relationship with the sisters of the Blue Tribe before him. It was really hateful. If you want revenge, don't worry about not having a chance, but what's more important now is to restore my strength, Shuiyi said softly. But it seems that another chosen one is still in seclusion in the ancestral land. I would like to wait for her first if possible. Huangfeng hesitated slightly. A hint of coldness flashed in Shuiyi's eyes. You've explained it to him so clearly, why don't you understand? The next moment, a ray of pale white light lit up from Huangfeng's ring. A slender and elegant figure appeared in front of him. Shuiyi was suspended in mid-air, looking extremely divine. She stared down with her gentle eyes and said softly, the top priority is not Musian, but that you have to improve your strength. After you go to Southern Wilderness during this trip, I will guide you to the Southern Wilderness Temple, where I have stayed. Huangfeng hesitated for a moment, and finally nodded gently when he saw Shuiyi's gentle gaze. Everything is subject to Master's arrangements. Boom. The aura of destruction emitted by the heavenly tribulation was gradually subsided. Yao Meng raised his head and stared at the beautiful figure standing between heaven and earth, and whispered to himself, it seems to be going well. The truly difficult catastrophe has passed. From now on, as long as Gong Lingyu successfully survives the 9th level of Thunder Tribulation, she will be able to truly ascend. Gong Lianyu is a person with a clear distinction between love and hate, but the person who protects her this time is the woman she hates the most. I wonder what her attitude will be towards herself after this. When Yao Meng came here, the corners of his mouth could not help but curl up slightly, and he glanced back in the direction of the Sword Palace inadvertently. But this glance made her eyes freeze slightly. The young man who was supposed to be waiting for her in front of the Sword Palace, together with the cute and natural girl, had completely disappeared at this moment. Where are the people? In the silent mountain forest. When he heard concubine Shang Yan's somewhat surprised inquiry, Musian was stunned for a moment, and then quickly realized who the elder sister was talking about was. Has the sect leader stopped pretending at all? So indirectly admitting that Lan Shiwei's chaotic energy was one of the plans she had prepared in the past. Musian couldn't help but raise his head and glance at the woman in front of him. In the field of vision, the exquisite and beautiful face of a woman dressed in black clothes came into view, with sexy and seductive red lips, majestic light golden eyes, and the surprise hidden deep in her eyes at this moment. As the best actor, Musian was at a loss when he saw her expression. Only one thought came to his mind: damn it, I can't seem to see through her. For Mr. Mew, who has been wandering among flowers all year round, he can more or less detect what she is thinking when getting along with any woman. However, at this moment, he couldn't tell whether concubine Shangyan was acting or she was really surprised. There will be chaos energy in his body. The sect leader has insight into the secrets of heaven. Don't you know that senior sister's ancestors gave me the energy of chaos before? Looking at concubine Shangyan's graceful curves outlined by her black dress, Musian asked calmly. Concubine Shangyan quickly suppressed the surprise in her eyes, gently played with a strand of hair with her fingertips, and said calmly, I have never left Liangyi sect, and I don't know much about the outside world. I believe you are a ghost, Musian complained in his heart. He even had the feeling that the big shark in the fish pond knew what he was doing. Oh, no, it's not clear whether she is a fish in the pond or whether Musian is a fish. Concubine Shangyan glanced at him with a smile, and then her eyes fell on Lin Ling. The people from the medicinal food hall sent a freshly roasted spiritual chicken not long ago. I asked them to put it in the courtyard for now. If you are hungry, you can go and enjoy it first. Lin Ling's eyes suddenly lit up, but then she thought of something. She pointed at Musian and held up the small book. What should he do? He'll come find you later. Seeing that Lin Ling still looked hesitant, concubine Shangyan couldn't help but smile. Are you still afraid that I will eat him? Lin Ling nodded slightly and glanced at Musian one last time. It's okay, you go ahead and I'll be there soon. Musian smiled. Even though I feel a lot of panic now, I still have to pretend to be calm. At the moment, Gong Lianyu is still in the process of transcending the tribulation and ascending, and Yao Meng is protecting her. But once the tribulation is over, they can't find anyone, then there will be trouble. After all, the only person who was with Musian at that time was Lin Ling. If Lin Ling also disappeared with Musian, he should be in the Liangyi sect no matter what. If he and concubine Shangyan were seen sitting together and chatting together in the sect, Yao Meng might not say anything on the surface, but maybe he would say afterwards, my husband didn't expect that you were having an affair with your sect leader behind my back. I'm so sad. Ah. Then the pure world seed turned into countless vines, tied up Mr. Mew and threw him into the Yaokai, and that was it. Not to mention Ruoxi, although she is obedient and well behaved, she is actually a bit possessive. She might take Mr. Mew to the small dark room of the Sword Palace one day when she becomes too tired to think about it. No matter what, we still have to return to the Sword Palace as soon as possible. Concubine Shangyan didn't seem to be aware of Musian's thoughts at the moment. She gently stretched out her hand under the shade of the tree. There were butterflies dancing under the shade of the tree. Then, as if feeling the call of concubine Shangyan, they flapped their wings and flew over, finally stopping at her fingertips. Are you anxious to go back? She asked casually. Although his eyes were admiring the butterflies on his fingertips, for some reason, Musian had the feeling that the other person was actually paying attention to him. It's not that I'm in a hurry, I'm just worried that Ruozia won't be able to find anyone after her transformation, so I came in a hurry, Musian explained tactfully. Concubine Shangyan smiled brightly, you are so considerate and consider others in everything. But you can rest assured. It will take at least half a day to transform into a calamity. It doesn't matter if you take a short rest in the section. Could it be that Sister Sect Master wants to spend more time with me? Musian was happy in his heart, but on the surface he was very respectful and nodded reservedly. Then let's wait until Linger has finished the snacks before leaving here. Musian looked at the brisk smile on her beautiful face. For some reason, his heart beat faster. He always felt that there was an indescribable charm that attracted his eyes. Such a special feeling almost made Musian involuntarily want to indulge in it. Come and sit. With a soft and calm smile on her face, concubine Shangyan waved gently in the direction of Musian. The two stared at each other, and Musian seemed to have lost his soul for a moment. When he suddenly woke up, he was already walking slowly towards the ancient tree. As the distance approached, under the little bits of sunlight that had just fallen from the ancient branches and leaves, there seemed to be a mysterious and strange black mist silently filling the air, so that her face seemed to become a little hazy. Is not real. After Musian sat down in front of the ancient tree, he glanced at the woman under the ancient tree and felt an impulse in his heart. An urge to get closer and see her face clearly. However, even so, he still barely suppressed this impulse. He is a disciple of the IE sect, and the idea of blaspheming the sect master is fine in his mind, but it will be completely different if he actually does it. However, I have to say that although this woman's breasts are not as big as Naxi's, they are still full and straight, and even bulge out of her slightly loose black dress. She was sitting under the shade of a tree with her legs bent, and a pair of weak and boneless feet peeked out from under her skirt. They looked translucent and beautiful against the black skirt. What's wrong? Is there something on my face? Concubine Shangyan's cold voice sounded from beside her. Musian suddenly came back to his senses and realized that the woman was looking at him without knowing it, with a touch of teasing in her beautiful pale golden eyes. He coughed lightly, calmly moved his eyes away from her bare feet, and coughed lightly. I heard from Linger that there seems to be some problem with the master's luck, so the energy of chaos is needed to suppress the bad luck. Transport. Since you already know everything, why ask again? Concubine Shangyan said calmly, the energy of chaos can suppress bad luck, but even the power of Hideo cannot refine it. Even if you get the third energy of heaven, I am afraid you will have to wait until you have enlightenment before you can make your natural furnace. The cauldron refines the energy of chaos. Musian nodded slightly, and then asked humbly and sincerely, then after I refine the energy of chaos, how should I hand it over to the sect master? Could it be that Sister Sect Master has any way to transfer the holy objects from the Tian cauldron? For a moment, it was so quiet under the ancient trees that there was no sound except for the rustling of leaves as the wind passed through the forest. After a while, Concubine Shangyan's clear and melodious voice came faintly under the ancient tree, I have nothing to do, but you can. She turned her head and stared at Musian, her pale golden eyes seeming to reflect Musian's face. As for the method, it's just as you think. Musian was silent for a while. Sometimes I really doubt whether the sect master can read minds. I don't know how to read minds, nor do I know how to guess people's hearts. Concubine Shangyan shook her head and denied Musian's words. I believe you, Musian cursed in his heart. Every time he saw this magnificent sect leader, he always felt like he was being seen through. I really don't know what you are thinking about on a daily basis. As if she had seen through Musian's thoughts at the moment, Concubine Shangyan suddenly said something casually. She paused and continued, however, I can guess what you are thinking about now. Musian smiled and said, would you like to bet on something? I bet you can't guess it. A faint smile appeared between Concubine Shangyan's eyebrows, if I guess wrong, I can agree to any of your conditions. Likewise, if I guess right, you can also agree to one of my conditions. How about that? Good. Musian responded immediately. Anyway, he just needs to deny whatever he says, and the other party can't accuse him of lying. The beauty in black attire inadvertently raised her eyes, looked at him playfully, and raised the corners of her mouth with a slight arc. She placed one hand on the grass, and gently stroked his face with the other hand. An intoxicating fragrance lingered at the tip of her nose. I guess dash. Concubine Shangyan leaned down and gently pressed her seductive red lips to Musian's ear, and her sweet voice that softened people's bones softly sounded in her ears. You miss me now? Right. So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 476. Under the ancient tree, silence enveloped the two of them. Musian felt the soft touch on his arm, the faint fragrance emanating from the woman, and the gentle voice echoing in his ears. He swallowed slightly. It was impossible not to be moved. Shang Yanfei just stared at him with a frivolous smile in her eyes, as if she was not the master who had calculated everything at this moment, but a big sister who liked to tease younger boys. However, he never made any movement. After being silent for an unknown period of time, Musian sighed softly. Then, he spoke calmly, "The disciple now has more than that kind of thought about the master." "I can swear to the avenue," Musian swore confidently. Boom! There was a roar from the horizon, and the avenue really responded to Musian's oath, but after half a day, no thunder tribulation fell on his head to strike him. This means that Musian did not lie. However, when he finished speaking, Shang Yanfei stared at him silently. "You don't have any improper thoughts about me?" Her expression was as calm as usual, but there seemed to be a few more emotions in her words that she had never had before. Musian hesitated for a moment and sighed, "Although it is a bit blasphemous to say this, I think there is no one in the world who will not have any thoughts after meeting the sect master. I am no exception. But now, compared to this, I want you to fulfill your promise just now." Shang Yanfei looked at Musian with a smile, as if she guessed something. "You say it," she said calmly. "I just want the sect master to answer me a question." Musian stared at the beautiful woman with a complicated expression. "What is the relationship between Mu Wanwan and you?" Shang Yanfei's eyes flashed with surprise for the first time, and then her expression returned to normal in an instant, and she whispered, "How did you know?" "I was wondering before, why my memory of being with Wanwan is so vague. Even if I hadn't seen her today in Xianhuang Mountain, I might not even remember her. I'm subconsciously ignoring her." Musian stared at Shang Yanfei silently, "But even if I saw her today, I still can't remember what happened between me and her. Those memories are very vague. I was obviously very happy when I was with her a few years ago. I have more or less some impressions of other things I experienced at that time, but I don't have much impression of things related to Mu Wanwan." "Just based on this, you think it has something to do with me?" Shang Yanfei asked. "The Sabbath is coming, and the heavenly Dao has chosen the messenger of God. If you are not careful, it may cause chaos in Zhuzhou, but you did not make any move. Even after Yao Meng came to find you, you did not make any move. Instead, you let me advance to the return to Void Realm to temporarily block the heavenly rules to restrict the foreign gods. But it is impossible to completely make them afraid. Sooner or later, there will be fools who want to take risks and do something." Musian paused and continued, "The sect master I know is not someone who will sit and wait for death. In fact, there is another very important point. The cup size of the sect master's sister is the same as Mu Wanwan, and both are shrouded in a fog similar to blocking the secrets of heaven." Musian saw Shang Yanfei and could not remember her appearance, and when he saw Mu Wanwan, he could not remember the things he experienced with her. So Musian had doubts. Of course, he was embarrassed to say this. After all, wouldn't it be like he was staring at the sect master's sister's chest every day? "What is your relationship with Wanwan?" Musian asked again. Shang Yanfei stared at him, and she couldn't help but feel complicated emotions, as if she was feeling mixed emotions. After a moment of silence, she said faintly, "Since you have guessed it, why ask again?" "You guessed it right, I am Mu Wanwan." Musian's expression suddenly became dull. "I'm so." At this moment, countless question marks seemed to appear in Musian's heart, and the whole person was in a state of shock. Although he had already guessed it in his heart before, when he really heard Shang Yanfei admit it in person, he still felt absurd. He once thought that he was the fish pond owner who was raising fish, but who would have thought that when he was a child, he had been raised fish by someone? This person was also the leader of Lianji sect. So I have said that the elder sister of the sect master is a reserved and sultry person. On the surface, she looks cold and mysterious, but in fact, Like the elder sister, both the master and the disciple are reserved and sultry. The clone happened to pass through Tianqian City, and then a little story happened with him. When Muzian thought of this, he quickly remembered something that was extremely scary. Did the paper crane that the elder sister threw out from Lianji Peak really happen to pass through Tianqian City, and then happen to be seen and cut off by him? Also, he didn't know that he was writing letters to the master and the disciple at the same time, and the sect master really didn't know? Or, she actually knew everything? No one would have thought that the young lady who happened to pass through Tianqian City was Shang Yanfei. Even Lan Mulian would be so surprised to hear this now. I am afraid that she would be stunned. Although Muzian knew that Shang Yanfei was behind everything, he was not sure what the sect master wanted from him at that time, so he always held awe of her. But now that she admitted it, the nature was completely different. At this moment, Muzian suddenly realized, but then he quickly remembered something and said hesitantly, when I was young, why didn't Sister Sect Master wait for me to grow up before coming to Tianqian City as Mu Wanwan? Concubine Shang Yan responded silently. Then, she glanced at Muzian and said calmly, after asking the questions, it's time for you to go back. Looking at the woman's indifferent attitude, Muzian would have been unable to fully believe the fact that Mu Wanwan was concubine Shang Yan if she hadn't admitted it herself. The Sabbath will not have much impact on Kyushu, so you don't have to worry about it. As for that ray of chaos, you can't refine it with your current natural furnace. There is indeed something wrong with my luck, but it doesn't affect me yet. The tall and stunning beauty stood tall, her posture was always elegant and calm, with her hands behind her back. A small section of her smooth and delicate calf was vaguely exposed under the gorgeous raven black dress. She lowered her eyes slightly and stared calmly at the ancient tree, which made her even more stunning. Moving. After she finished speaking, she saw that there was no sound behind her and was about to look back. At this moment, Muzian suddenly stepped forward, put his arms around concubine Shang Yan's slender waist, and then pressed his chest tightly against her smooth and white back. The young man's hot breath came from the snow-white jade neck. He held concubine Shang Yan in his arms, feeling the softness of the sect leader's sister's delicate body. The slightly loose skirt wrinkled slightly with Muzian's movements, and Muzian could clearly feel the body of the woman in his arms trembling slightly. However, he didn't say anything. The thunder gradually died down. Wearing a black and white palace dress fluttering in the wind, Gong Lianyu whispered in her heart, I never thought that one day, the ascension would be realized in this way. The pursuit of immortality by monks is to go against the will of heaven. After enlightenment, every time a lightning disaster occurs, if you are not careful, you may die suddenly and become the nourishment between heaven and earth, not to mention Hedeo, or even the immortal heaven. Tribulation. After all, there is no way to ascend to heaven in Kyushu. Bairuoxi's soft voice sounded, heaven is not in heaven and earth. From the past to the present, there are only 9 positions in heaven. Mu Lang is willing to help the palace master, so he must trust you very much. Gong Lianyu lowered her voice unconsciously, the person he likes is you, and the position of heaven was given to you instead of me. You and I are one, why should we be separated from each other? When I was with Mu Lang in the past, everything my body could feel, even my joys, anger, sorrows, and joys, couldn't you also feel it? Bairuoxi said softly. To be precise, the two of them are the same soul. No matter who is the leader, the other person can feel everything the main body can feel. Gong Lianyu's delicate, cold, and arrogant face couldn't help but be dyed with an intoxicating blush, and then she quickly said, okay, let's finish the things here first and then talk about these things. After she finished speaking, she swung away countless swords emitting dazzling golden light in the air. Those swords flew in all directions and returned to their masters. At this moment, Gong Lianyu stood in the air like this, her palace skirt printed with plum blossoms fluttering in the wind, her white jade feet wrapped in white silk socks, stepping on a pair of exquisite and small embroidered shoes, with a jade belt around her waist and skirt. The plump and straight breasts could not be completely covered. They were rippling gently with the cold wind, and the skin color was snow white and unfathomable. If you look closely, you will find that a silvery white pattern seems to appear vaguely between her ravines. Although it is difficult to see clearly, it actually adds a bit of mystery. No matter what you think this time, I owe you a favor. If there is need in the future, I will try my best to help. The next moment, Gong Lianyu's cold, arrogant, and sexy voice sounded in front of the Sword Palace. She turned her head and looked at the Qing Emperor who was protecting her this time. I said, "You helped me in the past, so I will naturally protect you this time." Yao Meng smiled slightly and said quietly, "If you insist on repaying me, just agree to one condition." Gong Lingyu, or Bai Ruoxi, raised her eyebrows slightly. "What are the conditions?" Yao Meng smiled and stared at the female swordswoman whose busted breasts could not be completely covered by her dress. She slightly opened her red lips and said something. Half an hour later. "Sister Sect Leader, I'll leave first." Muzian withdrew his hand feeling refreshed. At this moment, he felt a heartfelt sense of comfort and accomplishment, a feeling he had never experienced at any time in the past. After all, he had always been in awe of the sect leader's sister in the past. Although he also had lustful thoughts, he still felt more in awe of this woman who had clearly arranged for him. But today, he faced his inner demons. "Although I didn't go too far, even if it was just a hug, it was still a huge leap." When he turned around and was about to leave, the corner of his eye suddenly glanced in the direction of the stone table next to the ancient tree, where a book was placed. Mu Jian felt a little more curious, so he stepped forward and took a look at the name of the book. "The overbearing sect master fell in love with me." After being silent for a while, he looked at concubine Shangyan in surprise. Concubine Shangyan kept her expression calm and said calmly, "I saw it by chance and used it to kill time." "Sister Sect Master, have you finished reading it? Do you want to lend it to me?" Muzian asked tentatively. Concubine Shangyan glanced at him casually and said softly. Muzian put the book into the naja, then thought for a moment, and asked tentatively, "Is the sect leader also interested in this kind of book?" Concubine Shangyan finally looked back at him, her red lips raised slightly, and she said casually, "After the Immortal Ascension Conference was over, I gave Mu Lian a teleportation talisman. By burning that talisman, the person locked by the talisman can be teleported go to some basement in this peak." She stared at Muzian, her beautiful pale golden eyes full of charm. "Are you interested in living in the basement for a few days?" Her voice was always calm and elegant, as if the person held in Muzian's arms just now was not her. Muzian raised his hands and bowed, "Disciple, please retire. It's better to stop when you feel good, moisturize it as soon as possible, don't test the bottom line of the sect leader's sister, jump repeatedly in front of her. If you are really thrown into a small dark room, who will you cry to?" After Muzian left the back mountain, concubine Shangyan inadvertently withdrew her gaze. She raised her head slightly and stared at the ancient tree in front of her. After a long time, she slowly exhaled. His fingertips gently touched the red lips, then he tilted his head slightly and chuckled. "In the end, I still couldn't hold it back. I really don't blame me for not being strong-willed. The main reason is that she knows how to flirt. Otherwise, with my will, it wouldn't be difficult to refuse a beautiful woman." Muzian left the back mountain, and it seemed that he could still faintly feel the soft touch of the sect master's delicate body in his palms, so much so that even now, Muzian couldn't help but have some aftertaste, immersed in the touch just now. He left the back mountain with satisfaction. He originally wanted to find Miss Linglong, who was enjoying roast chicken in the courtyard. However, when he passed a large hall, vines suddenly wrapped around his feet. The moment Muzian lowered his head and looked down, he was stunned for a moment and subconsciously said, "Pure world seed." Whoosh. As soon as the words fell, the next moment, the vines enveloped him in an instant, tied up Musian, and then quickly swept away into a small dark room deep in the hall. When his vision finally recovered, what greeted Musian's eyes was a small, quiet dark room. Candles flickered on both sides of the small black room, and there were pure seeds under the feet that emitted a pale white light, making the dark and gloomy secret room look particularly bright at this moment. Not a single person could be seen in the secret room. Musian was very calm. "Yao Meng, if you don't come out, I will leave." There was no sound. Seeing this, Musian turned around and wanted to leave. "You have to be able to get out of this door if you want to leave," a lazy voice came from behind. As expected, Yao Meng realized that it was Ling Er who had done something good, so he came to Lianji Peak. Musian was not surprised at all. The moment he turned around, he was attracted by the appearance of the fairy sitting on the desk. She was wearing a slightly tight dress, her messy sideburns gently resting on her classic and delicate face, her nose high and her beautiful white feet exposed in the air. At first glance, she gave people a fairy-like feeling. A feeling of holiness. But what's more important is not her dress, but the stockings in her hands. Those are fishnet stockings. I'm super, where did she get it from? I remember that there is no such thing in the basement of Sister Sect Master. Yao Meng's thin, white, and slender legs were sitting on top of each other, and her dazzling white skin had a creamy texture and full elasticity under the candle light. That beautiful face was dotted with light makeup, her red lips were more delicate than before, with a bit more sparkle than before, and her beautiful green eyes were full of smiles. I was protecting your Taoist companion in the Sword Palace. It would be better for you to follow Ling Long and sneak into the Lianji section. If I hadn't captured your location through the Green Lotus Ring, it might have taken a day or two to find you. Yao Meng rolled his eyes and said calmly. Musian coughed lightly and explained, she was ill, so she had no choice but to return to the section. Yao Meng glanced at the young man. Really? But I saw that your Ling Er was having afternoon tea near the courtyard just now, looking very leisurely. So you took advantage of Ling Er still eating snacks and threw it into the dark room for me? Musian felt the silent atmosphere in the basement and felt great pressure. But for some reason, when I stay in a place like this, I feel an inexplicable sense of excitement. Protecting your Taoist companion is a very tiring task. Are you not going to do something for your sister on behalf of your Taoist companion, for example, rub your feet or something? Her eyes were frivolous and she stared straight at Musian. When Ruoxi is going through the tribulation, no one should come out to interfere, right? Musian asked. Well, of course no one will stop her at this juncture. Your kneading skills are much better than before. Feeling that one of his feet was gently held by a warm palm, as if even the faint fragrance was wrapped in his palm, the fairy's usually elegant and holy voice also had a trembling sound. First of all, I'm really not a foot control person. I just help Ruoxi. Secondly, I really have nothing to do with foot control. I just happen to like Sister Kingdi's feet. Musian held the fairy's small, snow-white feet. Kneading it gently, I defended myself mentally. By the way, I may need to ask you for help with something after this. Musian suddenly remembered something and looked up at the fairy sitting on the table with a faint blush on his face. Go ahead. There seemed to be a hint of softness in her voice, and her eyes looking down at the young man were filled with excitement and pleasure. You should know that when I was in the ancestral land of the Blue Clan, I had a conflict with an outside cultivator, right? Musian asked while kneading the soft and boneless jade feet of Sister Kingdi. Seeing her nod silently, Musian continued, that cultivator is suspected to have the help of a powerful person behind him, and there was also a very suspicious woman following him at the time. I was really concerned about her. Woman? Yao Meng put her other jade foot on Musian's shoulder and said casually, do you know the suspicious woman you mentioned? I know her, but I'm not sure if that person was her at the time. Musian paused. When I went to Jiyuan before, Yeah, you rescued the spiritual consciousness of a powerful person in the Jiyuan Palace. That spiritual consciousness was the fourth pillar god of the southern wilderness. Yao Meng played with a strand of hair with her slender fingers and raised her eyes lazily. You mean, the woman who followed the young man who had a conflict with you at the time was probably the god of space, Shui Yi. Muzian nodded slightly. Shui Yi and the saint of the southern wilds have a special relationship, and since it is just a wisp of spiritual consciousness, Shui Yi will definitely find a way to reshape the divine body, Yao Meng said softly. Muzian nodded, so I want to go to the southern wilds. Besides, he and Regina still have an agreement that has not been fulfilled, and this time it is just right to fulfill this agreement. Okay, I'll go with you then. There was a sudden itch in the solace of his feet, and Yao Meng's toes curled up slightly as if shy, glanced at the young man with burning eyes, and said in a lazy voice, but before that, help me put on my stockings. Muzian was stunned at first, and then, noticing the smiling eyes of Sister Kingdi, he couldn't help but slowly exhaled. That's why it's really irresistible to say that the queen is so. Muzian suppressed the thoughts that were aroused in his heart and took the stockings handed by Yao Meng. Wait a minute, before that I want to give you a surprise. When Muzian was about to step forward, Yao Meng lightly raised her fingertips and gently touched Muzian's forehead. Then, Muzian felt a familiar breath coming from a distance. He turned his head and looked, and soon stopped for a moment on the breasts of the beauty in the palace skirt. Ruoxi. Why is she here? Recognizing the identity of the visitor, Muzian was stunned for a moment, and subconsciously looked at Yao Meng, but saw that Sister Kingdi had already stepped forward to hold by Ruoxi's hand, and then came to Muzian with a smile. She held by Ruoxi's slender hand, her face was flushed with emotion, and her breath was as sweet as orchid. Do you like this surprise? The unexpected Kingdi and Palace Master camps are established. Seal-style applause. So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 477. Before, Muzian could never believe that the extremely cold and arrogant Sword Emperor Gong Lianyu would agree to such a ridiculous thing. At present, there are only 2 Ascension Realm human emperors in Kyushu. In the past, there were several conflicts between Gong Lianyu and Yao Meng, and they even fought over the Holy Grail, but now they can appear so harmoniously under the same roof. Down. And he seems to be planning to. Muzian looked at the cold and weak Miss Bai in front of her. Her slightly messy hair fell to her classic and delicate face. Her plump and straight breasts held up the white palace skirt proudly, following her gentle movements. And produced gentle shaking. On the right side of her huge human heart, a silver mark was vaguely visible, but part of the mark's pattern was hidden under her clothes, making it difficult to see what it was. Sensing Muzian's fiery gaze, Bai Ruoxi lowered her head shyly and asked in a low voice, "What's the matter, Mu Lang?" Muzian glanced at Yao Meng suspiciously, wondering what method this Kingdi sister used to get Ruoxi to agree to such an incredible thing. "It's nothing, I just feel relieved when I see you have successfully ascended." Soon, he calmed down his thoughts and said with a bit of sigh, "Back then, the realms between you and I were only a few levels apart, but now in the blink of an eye, you are already the human emperor of Kyushu, and I am still just returning to emptiness." "What did Mu Lang say?" "Isn't it all because of you that I am here today?" On Bai Ruoxi's porcelain-like beautiful face, her long and upturned eyelashes trembled slightly. She looked at Muzian resentfully and said, "Mu Lang, don't say such things again in the future. Next time, I got angry. And my own spiritual realm is similar to yours. Bai Ruoxi has a special identity and possesses 2 spiritual consciousnesses. Now Gong Lianyu has ascended into a feather, but she herself is still in the realm of returning to the virtual world. One day, when her spiritual consciousness is also combined, the charm of the 9-tailed sky fox will be truly its in full bloom." Muzian smiled as if he didn't care, stretched out his hand to gently stroke Bairuoxi's long hair, and said softly, "I'm just feeling a little emotional. I don't mean to create a barrier with you by saying this. By the way, how come you are with Yao Meng today?" Musian suddenly changed the topic, but his eyes carelessly glanced at the silver mark on her chest several times. What exactly is the silver mark? Mr. Mu had some desire to explore the mysterious and unknown in his heart. Bairuoxi was thin-skinned. When she heard Musian's question, her pretty face turned slightly red. Qing Emperor said, "I haven't seen you in seclusion for several days, so he brought me to you, it's that simple." He said that, but looking at Bairuoxi's shy and timid expression, and looking at Yao Meng's joking eyes beside him, Mu Jian already had the answer in his heart. "No matter how you look at it, it's not as simple as just wanting to see me. You probably want to do something else, right?" "I really don't know how Sister Qingdi persuaded Ruoxi." Musian muttered silently in his heart. Gong Lianyu had wanted to tear Yao Meng apart more than once before, but this time she was able to let Yao Meng hold her hand. This was a bit incredible. Musian stretched out his hand to hold Bairuoxi's soft little hand and pulled her to his side. The girl stood with her head bowed, looking down at her toes. Oh no, given the weight of her heart, she probably couldn't see her toes. Musian looked at Bairuoxi, who was wearing a clean white dress, with some covetousness. Then he glanced at Yao Meng tentatively and said softly, "Sister Qingdi." Yao Meng seemed to have guessed what he wanted to say, and smiled lightly. "Miss Bai felt that she owed me a favor, and wanted to find an opportunity to return this favor to me, so I made a suggestion that would not embarrass her too much." "Oh, and then Ruoxi agreed? No wonder the palace master hasn't appeared now, maybe he's a little shy, right?" Musian suddenly realized. The difference between Gong Lianyu and Bairuoxi is that that woman has a more arrogant temperament. She probably would not be able to accept such ridiculous behavior with Yao Meng, but if the dominant position is given to Bairuoxi, this weak and compassionate eldest lady Mei would agree. "No wonder it's Ruoxi who is standing in front of me now instead of the palace master," Musian said to himself. His palms gently hugged her waist, and he took her soft and delicate body into his arms, and then carefully he looked at Bairuoxi carefully. Mu Lang, what's wrong?" Bairuoxi was a little at a loss, her eyes averted, and she asked in a low voice. "Ruoxi, what's the mark on your chest?" Musian asked with a somewhat curious tone. Bairuoxi said softly, "After the palace master ascended to heaven, he added the mark left by Yuanwen with the character Bing." "What kind of mark is it? Can I see it?" Musian asked. Bairuoxi was stunned for a moment, then glared at Musian angrily. Musian said reservedly, "Nothing else, I just want to know what kind of imprint the character Bing will have on it." He paused, held Yao Meng with his other hand, guided her to his side, looked at the green lotus vaguely emerging on her tender white feet, and said, "Yao Meng's Lin character shows the purity of the world Qinglian's mark, and I've never seen the mark on you before, so I'm a little curious." "Just pure curiosity? Then I'll take her away." After watching, Yao Meng glanced at the boy, slightly raised her arrogant white chin, and her green eyes were filled with a bit of contempt, reflecting Bairuoxi beside her. At the same time, Bairuoxi bit her red lips gently. She was already ashamed to agree to Qingdi's ridiculous proposal, and now she was teased by Musian, so her face was naturally burning. But she finally suppressed the shame in her heart when she noticed Musian's expectant eyes, and raised her slender fingers lightly, pinching the jade belt that bound her waist. "Wait a minute." At this time, Musian suddenly reached out and gently pressed on the back of Bairuoxi's hand. "Before that, can you help me first?" Musian said softly. Bairuoxi raised her head, looked at Musian with a hazy look, and whispered, "What does Malang want to do?" Musian leaned over and whispered something in Bairuoxi's ear. Then, he bent down and took off Bairuoxi's small and exquisite white knee-high boots with his own hands, revealing a pair of white short socks. The girl seemed a little shy, her feet shrank back helplessly, as if she wanted to hide her feet under the palace skirt, and her beautiful eyes with mist looked at Musian resentfully. Then, under his expectant gaze, she slowly knelt beside him, letting the dust stain her clean white palace skirt. At the same time, Musian hugged Yao Meng's slender waist and lowered his head to occupy her soft lips. Lianji Peak. A remote courtyard in the main peak. Lin Ling, wearing a clean white dress, carefully wrapped the half-eaten roast chicken with butter paper tape, and walked towards Musian with her sensitive sense of smell. The hem of her skirt swayed with her brisk steps, and a pair of deerskin boots were faintly visible. Her straight long hair was naturally scattered without any decoration, slightly bent at her calves, and her delicate and fair face showed her ancient and gorgeous temperament. After the karmic fire was restrained, she became more dignified and pure, with a natural temperament that was ignorant of worldly affairs. When passing by the palace where Lan Murian lived, Lin Ling paused and tilted her head slightly, AAA. She thought Musian should be meditating in Lan Murian's palace, but when she passed by Lan Murian's palace, she found that Musian was not in the palace, but in the secret room prepared by concubine Shangyan before. The secret room is not far from the palace where Lan Murian lives, but who would go to such a place to meditate and practice? Lin Ling's delicate and beautiful eyebrows slightly frowned, and her eyes fell directly on the direction of the secret room not far ahead. She walked forward slowly and was about to push open the door of the secret room. At this moment, Musian's calm voice suddenly came from inside, Ling have you finished your snacks? I left some for you. After she finished speaking, she looked at the closed door with doubt again, and asked again in doubt, your breath is a little disordered, what happened? Musian reached out and gently stroked Bairuoxi's hair and the fox ears on her head, and soon noticed Yao Meng's frivolous eyes again. Musian looked calm on the outside, but he was panicking in his heart, maybe I just used up some energy practicing the exercises, and I can recover after meditating for a while. As soon as he finished speaking, he heard the faint sound of a woman trying to open the door. His heart skipped a beat and he said, Ling I'll go find you later, I'm still here. The voice suddenly stagnated, and after a moment, he said calmly, I'm still meditating. Lin Ling nodded AAA, obviously not doubting it, and soon the footsteps outside the secret room gradually faded away. Yao Meng raised her head, looked at the relieved boy, and smiled, you seemed very nervous just now. She wouldn't say anything even if she saw it. Musian shook his head gently. Lin Ling is different from any fish in the fish pond. She is the type who doesn't fight or compete. Even if she really saw the scene in the secret room at this moment, at most she would be so shocked that the roast chicken fell to the ground. Yao Meng's delicate eyebrows immediately raised, and she pursed her red lips, do you mean that I'm too controlling? I don't mind no matter how much Sister Kingdi controls me. After all, I will make up for it in other places. Musian laughed. Yao Meng was stunned for a moment, and then she quickly understood the meaning of his words, and a faint blush appeared on her delicate face. He led Yao Meng's hand and let her lean on the bed behind her. Then, his eyes fell on Bairuoxi and whispered, Ruoxi, if you are shy, just close your eyes. What does Mu Lang want to do? Bairuoxi hesitated and asked in a low voice. Musian did not speak, but let her press gently on Yao Meng's body. Mu Lang. Musian gently pressed his fingertips against her red lips and whispered, hush, a spring night is worth 1,000 gold. No words all night. Tips, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. The secret room in the early morning was a little messy, with white palace skirts and green long skirts like gauze hanging on the hangers. Musian still looked lively and energetic, and his energy was not affected at all. It is indeed the way to forge the body. I am different after returning to the Void Realm, and with the blessing of the heavenly phoenix technique, I feel that it is no problem to reach the feathered realm again. Musian changed his clothes and tidied up his room with a refreshed mind. He slightly brewed his emotions and switched back to his original state from the excitement of last night. Yesterday, Lin Ling asked him to find her, and Musian said that he was meditating. For a cultivator, meditating all night is actually a very normal thing. The naturally cute Miss Linglong would not doubt him. Ling are you in the room? Along the corridor, he came to another bedroom and knocked on Lin Ling's room. Opening the door, Musian saw Lin Ling sitting by the windowsill eating breakfast. Today, Miss Linglong was wearing a dark purple knee-length skirt with complicated patterns. The jade belt gently outlined her slender waist, and her figure curves were more slender and charming. Under the skirt, a pair of snow-white legs were slightly together, and the tender white feet were exposed in the air, swinging back and forth, and it seemed that the blue blood vessels could be vaguely seen. She did not ask Musian why he meditated for a whole night. As Musian expected, Lin Ling did not doubt such things, which also saved him a lot of trouble. Musian did not say anything, sitting aside and watching her back. The silver-haired beauty's silver hair was naturally scattered, and a pure face was reflected in the bronze mirror, and the red star eyes were clear and translucent. She tilted her head slightly and saw Musian beside her through the mirror. Her beautiful eyes lit up and wrote in the small notebook, "I left some snacks for you yesterday and put them on the table." Roast chicken is one of Lin Ling's favorite foods. She actually left some for herself. Musian was a little touched. "Thank you." Musian unwrapped the butter paper tape on the side and saw a roasted chicken leg left inside. There was only one. Musian subconsciously looked at Lin Ling. The silver-haired beauty blinked at him and held up the notebook. "What's wrong?" "Eat more, I will give you the third heavenly chi later," Lin Ling continued to write. "Ah, this, how about 2 days?" Musian subconsciously touched his waist. "Why? I went wrong in my meditation yesterday, maybe I need to slow down." Musian explained tactfully. "You can do it," Lin Ling said. The red starry eyes reflected Musian's handsome face. She stood up and walked over, leaned over and sniffed slightly at his chest, and before Musian could speak, she continued to write in the notebook, "Fairy Yao Meng and Bairu Oxy were at your place last night, right?" Musian. The words he was going to explain in his heart were stuck in his throat, and he looked at this natural spirit dragon sister in astonishment. Why? Shouldn't she be very sensitive to such things? I can detect the kindness and malice of others, and I can also tell whether a person is lying. And you didn't change your clothes today, and you have the breath of the two of them on you. There is also the spiritual energy they left in the furnace." Lin Ling looked at Musian faintly, and her eyes lost their luster. Musian didn't know what to say. Although he had long known that Miss Linglong was cute and silly on weekdays, and she was always thinking about the 8 treasure cranes of Canghai Peak, it didn't mean that she was really stupid. She was actually very sensitive to the things she cared about. After all, the world in this girl's heart is so big. The sect master, Musian, and snacks, she would be sad if any of them were missing. "Yesterday, I clearly agreed to give you the chi of heaven," Lin Ling continued to write in the small notebook. "Do you hate me?" Musian rubbed her silver hair and smiled. "How is it possible? No one in this world will hate Ling. But I haven't been in a good condition these 2 days, so the third heavenly chi may have to wait another day or two to transfer." When Lin Ling heard this, her eyes dimmed, and she looked at him with disappointment, whispered "AAA, and then stuffed another breakfast prepared this morning into Musian's arms. The karma fire no longer interfered with her body as often as in the past. She was secretly excited, thinking that after giving him the third heavenly chi this time, the karma fire would burn again for a while. Because of the karma fire, he might still be able to accompany her everywhere. "Then I'll go first." Musian turned around and left the room with the basket of breakfast. As soon as he stepped out of the room, he couldn't help but turn his head and look again. Lin Ling sat alone in front of the window. Outside the window was the bare garden that had just revived in spring, which looked a little desolate. She looked pure and pitiful in a purple dress, leaving a beautiful profile, but sitting under the window sill seemed lonely and desolate. There was nothing she could do, Musian sighed in his heart and turned back. AAA. Lin Ling looked up and saw the boy standing in front of her. She tilted her head slightly to look at him, and a strand of silver hair fell from her ear. But her red eyes suddenly brightened with a little hope. Think about it carefully. It's good to start transferring the energy of the heavenly Dao today, and it can also refine the energy of chaos, earlier Musian said. Lin Ling held up the small notebook. Is it okay? Musian looked at her sparkling eyes and smiled calmly. No problem, Linger underestimated me too much. The light of the morning sun shone in. Bairuoxi made a whimper, and slowly opened her beautiful eyes. It took a while for her dazed eyes to regain their spirits. She supported her soft body and sat up, stretching lazily. The quilt on her shoulders slipped off, and the thin white lingerie tightly wrapped the sexy and plump figure of the beauty. The slightly fluffy hair showed a lazy and messy feeling, which set off her beautiful face. Bairuoxi gently placed her slender hands on her full and upright chest, and her fingertips gently stroked the silver sword-shaped mark on her full chest, and then she yawned lazily. The silver sword-shaped mark on her chest was flashing all night yesterday, and it gradually subsided when Musian left this morning. Palace Master, are you angry? Bairuoxi asked in her heart. Gong Lianyu originally did not agree with the outrageous proposal of cooperation with the Green Emperor, but Bairuoxi agreed, so she had no choice. You are the sword body, and you are also his Taoist partner. Since you agree, isn't that enough? No need to ask me any more. Gong Lianyu's cold and arrogant voice came from the heart world. Bairuoxi smiled softly. Yeah, that's true. The mark on her chest is actually the heart world, and Gong Lianyu was in the heart world last night. If Gong Lianyu unilaterally blocked the heart world, how could the sword mark shine? Obviously, Gong Lianyu was also involved last night. Gong Lianyu seemed to understand something. After a long silence, she said quietly, you are less than 20 years old this year, but you have such a mind and dare to plot against me. This beautiful lady is obviously black. Gong Lianyu did not agree with the proposal of the Green Emperor yesterday. Bairuoxi accepted it and let Gong Lianyu temporarily live in the heart world. However, the souls of the two are connected. Bairuoxi can feel the happiness, Gong Lianyu can also feel it, unless before the dual cultivation, Gong Lianyu made up her mind to temporarily cut off the connection between the heart world and the outside world. However, that kind of excitement and happiness, once you start to experience it, you will not want to cut it off again. If it were not for the face, Gong Lianyu would probably occupy the other half of Bairuoxi's body last night and feel the wonderful aura of the natural furnace with her. Where is the Green Emperor? It seems that I didn't see her this morning. As if she didn't want to dwell on this topic, Gong Lianyu quickly changed the subject. Last night, Mu Lang asked her to pick up Sister Mengro. She must have arrived at the Yaoqi Holy Land now. Gong Lianyu said softly, and asked casually, what about him? Bairuoxi shook her head softly, I don't know. But since he is in Lianji Peak, there is no need to worry about his safety, Bairuoxi said softly. Gong Lianyu nodded silently. That's true. This is Lianji section. There is probably no safer place in the world than Lianji sect. After all, Shang Yanfei and Ling Long are also in Lianji Peak, and Ling Long has always been close to Musian, so he will naturally ensure his safety. Today's votes are so few, I'm begging for votes at the beginning of the month. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 478. One morning later. Oh no, I been fooled. Musian muttered to himself while looking at the ceiling, lying on the bed and thinking about the philosophy of the birth of the universe. Lin Ling was not in the room. She went to the natural hot spring in the backyard to take a fragrant bath. The elegant purple dress was a little messy. It was placed in the room, and the fabric of the dress seemed to be broken a little. After nearly half an hour, Lin Ling walked into the room wearing Musian's robe and saw Musian sitting in front of the window, flipping through an ancient book. Are you okay? Lin Ling came to his side and asked in a low voice with concern. Musian glanced at Lin Ling and saw that the silver-haired beauty's red eyes were particularly clear and transparent, as if what happened in the past 2 days had nothing to do with her. Feeling the unprecedented weakness of Tianzhen, Musian put his arms around her waist, hugged Lin Ling's delicate body into his arms, and said, "My dear Ling who do you think is to blame for this?" Lin Ling held up her notebook. "If you hadn't been close to other women first, you wouldn't be so tired now." She paused and continued to write, "But if they come to you together, there's nothing we can do." Musian said, "It's just the Yuhua realm. If I want, I can suppress it with my hands." His eyes stayed on Lin Ling's pure and lovely profile for a moment, and smiled, "Just like suppressing Ling the day before yesterday." Lin Ling's pure face like ice and snow instantly flushed. She buried her head, writing and drawing on the small notebook, and then handed the text in the small notebook to Musian. "What are you looking at just now?" "This is a map of Jizhu. I found it in the small dark room of the sect master before." Musian pointed to the location near the south on the map and continued, "The area of Nanhuang is different from any place in Jizhu. There seem to be many forbidden places here. Those forbidden places are filled with mysterious black fog all year round. If you step into them rashly, something ominous is suspected to happen to you, and even worse, you will be swallowed by the mysterious black fog. After that, no one in the world will remember the person swallowed by the black fog. In the past, people often said that this black fog was the magic left by the fourth pillar god of Nanhuang, the god of space. Have you ever heard of this?" After asking, Musian looked at Lin Ling. "I don't know. I used to suppress the fire in the cave and rarely left the section." Lin Ling shook his head. His red eyes were as clear as gems, and his expression dimmed. "Although she is in the Hedeo realm, she can't help much like the others around him, and can't even help with this matter." Musian gently stroked Lin Ling's smooth silver hair and said, "You have helped me a lot in the past. I will ask others about the matter in the southern wilderness later. Don't feel guilty. Compared to this, when are you going to ascend to heaven? At that time, let Ruoxi and Yao Meng protect you together," Musian asked. Lin Ling shook her head gently. "I haven't felt any signs of ascending to heaven yet." Musian was stunned when he heard this, and some doubts emerged in his heart. In theory, as long as you get a seat in the heavenly court, it is equivalent to jumping out of the rules of heaven and earth, and there is only one heavenly tribulation away from ascending to heaven. He has always believed so. But now it seems that it is not so easy for Lin Ling to ascend to heaven. But it is true. Lin Ling's identity is special. To describe it in the game, she is a neutral unit, but she happened to be abducted to Lianji sect by Shang Yanfei. Moreover, unlike other great masters of the Dao, Lin Ling resonates with the Dao, so if she wants to ascend to the sky, she may need to get the approval of the Dao, or let her have some special binding with the Dao. This matter can only be considered slowly later. The most urgent thing now is to fulfill Regina's agreement. Musian had a deal with Regina before, and also swore an oath, but Yao Meng's ascension to the sky caused quite a stir, so that the deal was not completed in the end. Moreover, the southern wilderness also involves the matter of the original witch, and he now needs to take Wei Mengru to the southern wilderness. Is there anything I can help you with? Lin Ling's face became hotter and hotter in Musian's arms. She gently poked his waist and had already put up her little notebook waiting for his answer. Musian shook his head. Ling just needs to be responsible for eating. Lin Ling frowned in dissatisfaction, feeling that she was underestimated by Musian. I'm just going to the southern wilds to investigate Shui Yi's whereabouts. If there's really a need, I'll tell you. Musian held her hand and smiled, and don't underestimate it. There are many tricks here. Next time, I'll take you to taste other snacks, so you can have more food. He leaned over and whispered something in the ear of the innocent Miss Ling Long. Lin Ling's body stiffened suddenly, and her delicate face soon flushed. Musian couldn't help but smile, holding her soft little hand, and said softly, "My Linger is so innocent that she can't stand teasing." Lin Ling glanced at Musian's nearly exhausted Tiansheng furnace, and silently wrote in the small notebook, "Your breath is a little weak, let's go to the herbal medicine hall for breakfast." Musian pondered for a moment, nodded slightly and smiled, "Okay." When Lin Ling left Musian's arms and was about to walk out of the room, Musian's voice suddenly came from behind. "Wait." Lin Ling paused and turned to look at him in confusion. "AAA. You want to wear my clothes to the herbal medicine hall?" Musian asked. At this moment, Lin Ling was wearing the black robe that Musian often wore in the past. The slightly loose robe completely hid the figure of this silver-haired beauty, but the exposed skin was white and translucent, with a special beauty. "AAA." Lin Ling nodded slightly, took off the robe, and then took out a white dress to change into, and then took Musian's hand and planned to leave. But she found that when Musian stood up, his steps seemed a little shaky. "Are you okay?" Lin Ling wrote in the small notebook with concern. "It's okay, just help me," Musian said silently. No matter how strong the return to Void Realm is, it can't withstand suppressing 2 human emperors, and then practicing with Lin Ling in the state of karma fire. "I am also a 9-tailed fox body, which is half a demon cultivator, so why can't I have as much energy as you?" Musian sighed. "I am also a special type among demon cultivators." "Not all demon cultivators have strong energy," Lin Ling answered obediently in the small notebook. "In the current demon world, the strongest physique is the heaven-swallowing demon body of the Demon Queen, and Lin Ling's physique is at least not inferior to the heaven-swallowing demon body." Musian shook his head and smiled, "My Linger is not a demon cultivator." He looked at the silver-haired beauty with an innocent and cute face at the moment, kissed her exquisite and beautiful side face, and whispered, "You are a troublesome little demon." The medicinal diet hall, as the name suggests, is actually a place to make some food. Cultivators usually don't need to eat, and everything they have can be obtained from the spiritual energy between heaven and earth. However, these medicinal foods are usually not ordinary medicinal foods, but special foods with natural materials and treasures. Only the inner disciples of Lianji sect or some disciples with excellent performance and a lot of sect points can occasionally enjoy such medicinal foods in the medicinal food hall. Musian still has a lot of sect points left, so it is natural for him to take Lin Ling to enjoy breakfast. However, I don't know if the news was leaked or not. Soon after the two of them stepped into the private room on the second floor of the medicinal food hall, several maids had already brought different medicinal foods into the private room. Even the tableware was made of special spiritual stones, and the chopsticks in their hands could also smell a faint fragrance. Lin Ling sat silently in the private room with a calm expression, allowing the maid next to her to pour tea and cut cakes for her. Her sitting posture was straight and elegant. She didn't see the silly and cute girl posture at ordinary times at all, but instead had a bit more elegant temperament of the queen. Only at this time did Musian realize that she was the guardian beast of the Lianji sect, a creature born from the great Dao, and the queen of the destiny of the 9 provinces. It was just that she was always cute and innocent in front of Musian, so that he ignored her true identity. "You can leave first, I can enjoy breakfast by myself." Lin Ling held up the small notebook to show the maid next to her. After the people in the private room left, Musian couldn't help asking, So you still know people from the herbal medicine hall? Lin Ling nodded gently. I was discovered by the leader when I was eating snacks in the herbal medicine hall before, and then she told me that I could come here to enjoy snacks at any time. But I see that you seem to seldom come to the herbal medicine hall, Musian said doubtfully. They all have a purpose, and you can't always eat their food, otherwise you will owe them a favor. Lin Ling put her index finger on her lips and told Musian a secret. This is also what the sect master told you, right? Musian couldn't help laughing. Lin Ling nodded gently. If that's the case, why did you come again today? Lin Ling hesitated, and raised the small notebook again. You have been helping me suppress the fire of karma these 2 days, and the consumption is huge. I feel sorry and have to be responsible for you. I really cried to death, Musian sighed in his heart. After sitting in the private room and enjoying breakfast with Lin Ling, Musian's body seemed to be faintly overflowing with a faint spiritual glow, which was extremely rich. I don't know how many natural treasures he ate for this breakfast. Musian felt the energy gradually filling up in his body, burped with satisfaction, and took Lin Ling to Lianji Peak together. That afternoon, Yao Meng's figure appeared in Tianhe Garden, and next to her was Wei Mengru, who had been in seclusion 2 days ago to comprehend the Daeyun of returning to the void. Yao Meng glanced at the courtyard and asked in confusion, "Where are Ling Long and the palace master?" Ling Er just finished breakfast. She should be playing chess with the sect master at Lianji Peak now. Ruoxi went to the Sword Palace. Sword Palace? Why did she go to the Sword Palace for no reason? Yao Meng's eyes were filled with confusion. She wants to rebuild the glory of the Sword Palace in the past, Musian said. When Gong Lianyu cut off her own heavenly Dao, she did leave a backup plan. There were several formations in the Sword Palace, which sealed many disciples and elders in the Sword Palace. However, she had been busy with other things before and had no time to deal with these things. No wonder. Yao Meng whispered to herself. Do you have something to ask me? Aware of Musian's gaze on her, Yao Meng seemed to realize something and spoke immediately. Sister Kingdi really understands me. Musian nodded slightly. I have seen the map of Kyushu, but there is very little information about southern wilderness, and the black mist in it is even more concerning. About the black mist, have you heard anything in the past? I read that there is a rumor left in the ancient books. Once you are contaminated with the black mist of the southern wilderness, something ominous will happen in the future, Musian asked humbly. I don't know where the black mist technique in southern wilderness originated from, but the rumors you mentioned are not false. Yao Meng paused and looked at Wei Mengru. Intentionally or unintentionally, the ominousness in the black mist is somewhat similar to Miss Wei's bad luck. Once it is contaminated, it will be haunted by the ominousness. In addition, this time I go with you to the southern wilderness, I'm afraid I will have to live in your natural furnace temporarily, Yao Meng continued. Musian was startled, but he quickly reacted and said with a smile, that's fine. Previously, Yao Meng stepped into the southern wilderness alone and killed the god of the ocean. This incident caused a sensation in the 9 provinces, and the southern wilderness became more fearful of the Yaokai Holy Land. If Yao Meng followed Musian openly and honestly, he would inevitably arouse the vigilance and awe of the Nanhuang monks. This was not conducive to the purpose of his trip. Of course, there is another very crucial point. The spiritual energy in the natural furnace is really wonderful. As Yao Meng turned into a ray of blue light and entered Musian's natural furnace, a heavenly fairy voice sounded leisurely in his heart. Yes, Yao Meng himself also wanted to experience the wonderful feeling of being completely enveloped by Musian's spiritual energy in the Tiansheng furnace. The strengthening of the natural furnace, the aura of heaven, and the charming aura of the 9-tailed fox, no woman can refuse such a wonderful aura. Even if Yao Meng practices meditation, he is no exception. Sister Mengru, how have you been these past few days? Do you miss me? Musian's eyes fell on Wei Mengru and asked half-jokingly. I feel upset when I see you. The maid in a yellow skirt maintained a cold attitude and squinted at the young master. You don't need to think about it to know that Musian's spiritual energy is a bit frivolous, and he must have been close to other girls in the Lianji sect these days. Musian was not annoyed, but smiled knowingly. Wei Mengru is a somewhat arrogant and aloof maid. When you tease her, she will only give you a look of contempt. If you dare to touch her, even if you are the master, she will dare to kick you. She is not like the original witch at all. She is a being with a bit of Yandere potential, and Musian has already experienced this. So the more this happened, the more Musian couldn't help but want to tease her when he saw her. Musian looked at the maid's cold attitude. His face suddenly turned pale, he covered his mouth and coughed lightly, and his body shook. "What's wrong with you?" Wei Mengru was shocked, and immediately stepped forward to support the young master. When she saw that his face was a little pale, a trace of distress flashed in her eyes, and she said, "Something went wrong in the training. He was obviously fine just now." "I'm fine. Sister Mengru, don't worry. It'll be fine after a little rest overnight." Musian forced a smile and said, "I'm going back to the room first." As he spoke, he wanted to gently push Wei Mengru away, but Wei Mengru subconsciously grabbed his arm, lowered her head and whispered, I will take you back to your room." "No need, I'd better go back by myself. Anyway, Sister Mengru finds my face annoying when she sees it, so I won't force it." Musian stared at her and said weakly. Wei Mengru pursed her lips and lowered her voice unconsciously, "I'm not really worried." "Then is Sister Mengru thinking about me?" Musian asked softly. "You're still talking nonsense at this time. I'll take you back to your house first." Wei Mengru quickly denied that she was still thinking about the young master during the solitary period, which was a shameful thing. It was impossible to admit such a thing no matter what. Musian did not let her go. He gently held Wei Mengru's cold little hand and said softly, "But I miss Sister Mengru so much that I can't sleep at night. If there hadn't been too many things recently, I would have wanted to immediately tear open the rift in space to find Sister Mengru." The cold attitude that Wei Mengru had just maintained was broken in a second. Her pretty face turned red suddenly, she lowered her head and stammered, "Be more serious, and I have been in seclusion before, so you won't be able to see me when you come. Even if I'm waiting outside for Sister Mengru, I'll be happy if I can feel your breath," Musian said softly. Wei Mengru fell silent, with a touching blush on her face, like a panicked deer. She had actually heard him say it to other women several times before with the young master, but it was really her turn. "I still feel extremely ashamed. But what's more, it's the shyness and joy that surges uncontrollably in my heart." Then soon, Wei Mengru woke up from her trance and found that the young master's weak state just now was gone, and he was looking at her with a teasing look. "Were you lying to me just now?" She finally came to her senses. "I'm lying to you." Musian was very calm, grabbed her little hand, and said softly, "But I think you didn't lie about this. If you care, it will lead to chaos," and Musian has indeed lost a lot of spiritual energy in the past few days, otherwise, he really can't hide it from the maid. Wei Mengru struggled briefly, then let Musian hold her hand, lowering her head slightly, and the indifference on her face gradually turned into a shy posture. Time passed by silently, and after a while, Wei Mengru left the young master's arms, feeling a little unfinished. "Are you planning to go to the southern wilderness just to complete the previous deal with Regina?" Wei Mengru asked with a somewhat skeptical tone. "Of course not." Musian shrugged, "All the three pillar gods of the southern wilderness have fallen. Now the entire southern wilderness is undergoing a major reshuffle. In the past, there was constant friction between the southern wilderness and Dongzhou. A large part of the reason was because of the three pillar gods, so this if possible, it would be best to choose someone who is friendly to Dongzhou as the master of southern wasteland." "You mean, Regina?" Wei Mengru whispered to herself. Musian once saved Regina's life, and the relationship between the two is already special. If in the end, after the great turmoil in southern wilderness, Regina can succeed the queen of southern wilderness, for the future of Dongzhou, it will be better. After all, if Regina becomes the queen of southern wilderness, Muzian will become the hub for exchanges between southern wilderness and Dongzhou. The only uncertain factor that makes Regina become the queen of the southern wilderness is the god of space, She. The southern wilderness evil god's combat power is exaggerated to the extreme, but no matter how powerful he is, he cannot survive the longevity. Even the only sky god who was still in the Hedeo realm was actually approaching the end of his lifespan. The combat power of the god of space is said to be far superior to that of the three pillar gods of the southern wilderness. Even if he is injured now, he is still extremely dangerous. Is that why you asked Emperor Qing to go with you? Wei Mengru muttered to herself thoughtfully, then raised her head and said, I'll go with you too. She didn't know what the young master wanted to do, but she would go wherever the young master went. This was the default rule in the past. Muzian nodded slightly, and then woke up Yao Meng in the natural furnace. We have to ask Sister Qingdi to take us to the southern wilderness together, Muzian said. Yao Meng glanced at Wei Mengru's face that still had some blush, then looked at Muzian calmly, narrowed his eyes and smiled, That's okay, but where do you plan to go to the southern wilderness first? Muzian smiled and said, Southern Wilderness Temple. Since we've gone to southern wilderness, we should go meet some acquaintances first, right? I haven't posted in the next 2 days. I'm still a little panicked when I can't see the feedback. If you think it's okay after reading it, just throw in a recommendation vote. Once you see the data in the background, you'll feel at ease. So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 479. The area of the southern wasteland is extremely vast. Even if it is placed in the 9 provinces, its area is second only to the eastern province and the demon realm. In fact, although the southern wasteland is somewhat desolate, this desolation is not really because it has no weeds or anything. The reason why it is desolate is the situation caused by the black fog. In the earliest times, the 9 provinces were not the 9 provinces, but only the 8 provinces. It was just that one day in the past, a mysterious black fog slowly spread towards the south. Wherever the black fog passed, everything withered. The cultivators in the eastern province, the demon realm and other places all changed their color when they saw the black fog and avoided it. The place where the black fog spread also became a real taboo in people's hearts. In the end, the black fog stopped in a certain area in the south and no longer spread forward. The cultivators in the 9 provinces were afraid of the black fog, so few cultivators from the outside world set foot in this area, for fear that they would be swallowed by the black fog accidentally. Until one day, a person was born from the black fog. According to legend, it was a woman, wearing a black gauze dress, with pale skin, bare feet, and a gentle temperament. Wherever she passed, the black fog strangely retreated. Soon after that, more and more creatures were born from the black fog. Those creatures were born with countless eyes, with ferocious and strange looks. In terms of physical strength alone, they were even stronger than monsters. Later, these creatures were called evil gods by the monks of Zhuzhou. Among them, the strength of 4 gods was far stronger than that of normal southern wilderness creatures. They were born in the state of enlightenment. Not only could they move freely in the black fog, but they could even absorb part of the black fog for their own use. Soon after, they resonated with the way of heaven and achieved the supreme fruit of the Tao. The monks of the southern wilderness believed that it was the grace of the mistress of the black fog that bathed this land. In order to thank the mistress of the black fog, the monks of the southern wilderness built a temple, worshipped the woman as a god, and built a statue. After that, the southern wasteland was divided into 4 major forces, which were controlled by the 4 pillars of the sky, earth, ocean, and space. Every few years, the southern wasteland temple would open a secret realm, and occasionally one or two southern wasteland monks would be able to comprehend the southern wasteland secrets left by the first goddess from the secret realm. Those who comprehend the southern wasteland secrets can freely shuttle through the black fog of the southern wasteland without being swallowed. Even though the southern wasteland had fallen into chaos due to the loss of the three pillars of the gods, the southern wasteland is still one of the most powerful regions. Because they did not lose all the gods. Not only did Shui return to the southern wasteland a few days ago, but more importantly, there are still rumors in the southern wasteland that the goddess is still alive and is protecting the southern wasteland, and countless southern wasteland monks still believe it. After all, he is the god who created the entire southern wasteland. The black fog is a representative of holiness in the southern wasteland. The master of the black fog naturally cannot be easily erased by time. The space crack opened silently, and the figures of Musian and Waymengru quietly appeared in the depths of the southern wilderness. This area is so vast that Musian could vaguely see the black fog in the distance. In the air, an ancient temple was quietly suspended. There was a statue on each side of the temple, and a woman in a black gauze dress was carved on it. The formation quietly blessed the temple, making it faintly emit a sacred halo. This is the temple of the southern wilderness, and it is also the most sacred place in the hearts of the southern wilderness cultivators. In the entire southern wilderness, this temple is the most dazzling. In front of the high platform of the temple, there stood a man in a black robe who looked extraordinary. He was Huang Weifeng. Not long ago, after going through untold hardships, he brought Shui to the southern wilderness together. He entered the southern wilderness temple with this master and successfully let her get warm and nurtured in the temple. Therefore, he was warmly treated by the elders in the southern wilderness temple and regarded as a guest. Not far behind Huang Weifeng, there stood a stunningly beautiful woman. She had a charming face, graceful and elegant, with an ethereal temperament. Her soft light golden hair was loose, her manners were dignified, and her beautiful eyes were tender and tender. She looked down from the high platform, as if she was pitying the gods in the world, with a lofty beauty and unparalleled grace. The fourth pillar god of the southern wasteland, the god of space, Shui. Even the veil covering her face at this moment was a special magic weapon, which not only covered her stunningly beautiful face, but also completely restrained her aura. At first glance, people might think she was just an ordinary person. Just when Musian and others appeared in the southern wasteland, Shui immediately noticed the few people who descended on the land of the southern wasteland. Musian, he really came to the southern wasteland, Shui whispered to herself. What, Musian also came to the southern wasteland? Upon hearing this, Huang Weifeng immediately looked down from the platform of the aerial temple. He is really brave. He knows that Nanhuang is not friendly to him and Dongzhou, but he dares to step into Nanhuang's territory with such fanfare. Huang Weifeng's eyes flickered, and he was a little excited about Musian's arrival. Nanhuang is not like Dongzhou. After all, this is Shui's territory. He has been brooding over the last time he lost to Musian. Now that he sees such a good opportunity, he naturally has some fighting spirit in his heart and wants to compete with Musian again. However, the next moment, Shui's clear and pleasant voice, like a splash of cold water, directly extinguished the fire in Huang Weifeng's heart. Musian has two Yuhua realm behind him, and he is backed by Linglong and others. He is well taken care of. Do you think that even if he wants to come alone, the other great powers will agree? These words directly made Huang Weifeng's face look a little ugly. It means, Musian is accompanied by a powerful person? What on earth is he here for? Shui smiled softly. According to what Regina said before, she has a close relationship with Musian. Maybe, this time he realized that Regina was in trouble, so he came to save her specially. Huang Weifeng nodded silently and quickly hesitated. If we go by what Master just said, wouldn't Musian be followed by the Qing Emperor or the Sword Emperor? If they notice your presence. This is southern wilderness, not Dongzhou. Besides, I am different from those old monsters in southern wilderness. Shui Yi's tone was gentle and calm, but it revealed strong confidence. This time she got the backup she had left in the past in the southern wilderness temple, and temporarily recovered a few % of her spiritual energy. With the blessing of the formation in the temple, she could temporarily block the rules of heaven and earth. Even if the Qing Emperor is here, she can temporarily battle. The god of the sky and others did not know at all that the temple left by the Lord of Black Mist contained a special formation, which was similar to the formations in Lianji sect, Demon Realm, and other places. Being in the temple, one could not obey the rules of heaven and earth. Influence. And she is the only one who knows the secrets of the temple. Besides, I don't intend to be an enemy of Qing Emperor and others, Shui Yi continued to say quietly with a gentle voice. But Musian has a close relationship with Regina. If he knew that Regina was being secluded by you, he would probably find a way to save her, Huang Weifeng tentatively asked. Hearing this, Shui Yi stared into the distance with playful eyes. It's true that he has a close relationship with Regina, but as long as I also have a close relationship with him, who do you think he will help when the time comes? Huang Weifeng was stunned and said hurriedly, Master, you must not do this. In your capacity, you bend your knees to please Musian. If word spreads, the monks in the southern wilderness will not know how to discuss you. There is constant friction between Dongzhou and Nanhuang, and the monks under Nanhuang know very little about this matter, but they also know that the three pillar gods of Nanhuang all died at the hands of Dongzhou monks. Once the monks in southern wilderness know that their god actually took the initiative to make friends with a young monk from Dongzhou, I am afraid that the first monk in southern wilderness will not be able to accept it. Who told you I'd get down on my knees to please? Shui Yi maintained a friendly smile, but there was a hint of disgust in her eyes. I have my own plan for this matter. You have had a conflict with Musian. If you can't control your emotions, just go to the inner hall to meditate and practice. I will handle it myself. When Huang Weifeng heard this, he was still a little suspicious, but then he thought about it. With an existence like Master, there was no need to lie to him, right? After all, she is the most powerful god in the southern wilderness. Although her beauty is unparalleled, no matter what, as long as she doesn't want to, even that Musian will dare to do anything to her? Do you really think that everyone will like a little monk like Musian? I understand, then I will go back to the inner hall to meditate and practice, and I will leave the rest to Master. Huang Weifeng nodded slightly and raised his head to look at this beauty who was wearing a pure dress and emitting a soft golden light. There was a flash of obsession in his eyes. Compared with the beautiful master in front of him, the female cultivators he met when he traveled to Dongzhou in the past were far behind in terms of beauty, realm, and even mentality. It's impossible to say that he didn't have any ideas, otherwise he wouldn't have taken Shui Yi all the way to the southern wilderness. On the one hand, he did this to restore Shui Yi's original strength so that he could stand up for himself and defeat Musian, but on the other hand, it was out of selfish motives. Shui Yi watched quietly as the boy turned and left. She always had a friendly smile on her face, but for a moment, a coldness without any warmth flashed through her tender and beautiful eyes. She turned around and walked along the corridor of the main hall towards a church with several formations. At the end of the church is a statue of a woman. Under the statue, a blonde beauty dressed in Nanhuang costumes, with a large area of skin exposed to the air, was kneeling and sitting on the edge. Her body was quietly bound by a silk-like string, which ran along her thighs from the bottom up. Bound together with her hands. The soul-sealing lock. Once a monk who has returned to the void is bound by this lock, even a little bit of spiritual energy will be absorbed by the soul-sealing lock. However, I really didn't expect that your own physique is so weak. After losing your spiritual energy, you can't even ordinary people can't compare. Shui Yi stepped on sexy high-heeled sandals and wore a white skirt with the skirt trailing to the ground. She walked elegantly in front of Regina, slowly squatted down and looked into her eyes. Actually, you are the backup I left behind. If you are willing to swear to be used by me, after I become one with you in the future, I will also leave you a trace of spiritual consciousness. What do you think? Regina slowly raised her head, her lips were slightly pale, and her face showed a sneer. The majestic god of space, would you be willing to share the same body with a junior like me? What's more, after leaving a ray of spiritual consciousness, everything will be at your command. What's the difference between it and the living dead? After she returned to the southern wilderness, she had researched things about the god of space, and found many unknown secrets in some sealed ancient books. For example, Shui created her purely for the convenience of swallowing her in the future. She was said to be able to leave a ray of spiritual consciousness, but that ray of spiritual consciousness could only stay in Shui's furnace and would never see the light of day again. What's the point of that? You are too stubborn. If it weren't for the fact that you are the saint of the Southern Wilds and several Southern Wilds elders have pleaded for you, do you think I need to chat with you so much? Shui said with a smile. Isn't it because your strength has not recovered by 20% or 30%, and your mental strength is insufficient, and you are worried that occupying my body and consciousness will be counterattacked by me? Regina laughed sarcastically. Now that I have fallen into your hands, there is naturally nothing to say, but don't think of asking me to compromise with you directly and let you devour this body. If it weren't for the man named Huang Weifeng who took Shui into the southern wilds this time, the entire southern wilds should have been under her control now. At this moment, I think it would be a different scene. Shui stared at Regina quietly, with a strange luster in her beautiful eyes, and whispered, "You don't think that the little lover you met when you went to Lianji sect before will come to save you?" Regina's coldness finally changed, but her tone remained calm. "Why do you say that? I heard a lot about you and Musian from the little monk named Yeyu before. With the power behind Musian now, if he is really determined to save you, it will indeed cause a lot of trouble for me." Shui smiled. "It's better to say that the trouble has come to the door now." Regina subconsciously looked at the god of space and said in disbelief, "He has come. Musian is now outside the temple of Nanhuang. I guess he will come to visit soon." The god of space showed a cold but extremely charming smile. "You might as well guess, after I meet him, will he choose you, the genius of Nanhuang, or me in the end?" The god of space, as the name suggests, is the god who controls space and has the power closest to the mistress of the black mist. In the past, most of the time, the most talked about by the monks of Nanhuang was the god of space who rarely appeared but had the highest prestige. The reason for this was not because of power, but because Shui understood people's hearts too well and played with people's hearts. When Musian first met her, she had a kind and charming smile on her face, and her every move was elegant. Her gentle eyes that pitted the world made people want to throw themselves into her arms and accept the purification impulse. However, Musian had seen similar eyes on Yao Meng before, and clearly knew the other side of the fairy under her holy appearance, so he was on guard against Shui from the beginning. "Someone in the temple just now locked you with spiritual consciousness. If you step into the temple later, you have to be careful." Yao Meng's voice came from the bottom of Musian's heart, reminding him softly. "Sister Kingdi, do you know the identity of the person who locked me?" Musian asked. "It should be a great man in the Hedeo realm," Yao Meng said lightly. "Shui." Musian whispered to himself. "So it seems that Regina should be imprisoned. Regina looks sick, but her mental strength is the strongest among the peers that Musian has seen. Shui is seriously injured and only has a trace of spiritual consciousness left. If she rashly devours Regina's body, she may be devoured by Regina. Therefore, Musian does not think that Regina has died now. Unless she is in a desperate situation, Shui will not take the risk to devour Regina directly. Moreover, the southern wilds have never experienced the calamity of reshaping the body, which is enough to show that Shui has not recovered yet. It seems that this trip to the southern wilds is not in vain. If it takes a little longer, when Shui Yi's spiritual consciousness recovers a little, I am afraid she will attack Regina. While Musian was thinking, a woman dressed in exotic styles in the temple was flying from a distance on a sword. He took the opportunity to look up. It should be Shui Yi who sent someone to pick us up, Wei Mengru whispered. First, unlock the shielding spell in the Tiansheng furnace, so that it will be more convenient for me to protect you. Yao Meng's voice sounded in Musian's heart. Now it is impossible to observe the situation outside in the Tiansheng furnace, unless Musian takes the initiative to unlock the shield of the Tiansheng furnace, or the people in the Tiansheng furnace forcefully peek. And now Yao Meng has been forcibly observing the situation outside, but this is more troublesome after all. Musian nodded slightly and removed the shielding spell of Tiansheng furnace. Not far away, the wheat-colored Nanhuang woman Xiaojuan gently jumped down from the flying sword, raised her head and gazed at them, and said softly, "Mr. Mu, Miss Wei, Lady Shui Yi is waiting for you two in the temple." Musian raised his hand and bowed, smiling, "Thank you for leading the way, miss. There must be a powerful person following him on this trip, and Shui Yi must know about it." But even so, the other party still sent someone to greet him. He also wanted to know what Shui Yi was up to.